Chapter 3350. Sun Ying felt even more sorrowful when she thought of the happy days in the past and her current life. At the same time, she was filled with resentment. It was as if the whole world had let her down, wronged her, and left her in such dire straits. "Mom, I hate it. I hate it so much. Why weren't you by my side? Why did you send yourself to prison? Mom, if you were by my side, I wouldn't have had such a hard time. I wouldn't have been so tired. Mom, I hate it so much. I hate that B*TCHECHN. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have ended up like this. Our family would still be here. I'd still be the enviable Ying, not the Sun Ying who doesn't even dare to return home. Why didn't you kill Yi Jian back then? If you had killed her back then, none of this would have happened. Everything would have been fine. Our family would still be living a happy life. We would still be a family envied by others. Mom, why didn't you kill her back then?" Sun Ying, whose forehead was pressed against the back of her hand, sobbed softly. Before high school, Sun Ying's life was too blissful. She didn't suffer any setbacks. After high school, Sun Ying was plagued with bad luck. She couldn't get what she wanted no matter what. Thinking about the past and the present, Sun Ying became sadder and sadder. The more she thought about it, the more she couldn't accept it. For a moment, she burst into tears uncontrollably. Sun Ying's house was located at the entrance of the village, and the distance between the villagers was not far. Sun Ying was crying alone in front of her house. Her neighbor, Aunt Yu, who was cooking dinner in the kitchen, heard it. She pricked up her ears and listened carefully. It was a woman crying. Sometimes it was high and sometimes it was low. It was vague and not very clear. This frightened Aunt Yu so much that her heart jumped. She whispered to her husband, who was sitting on the stove, warming himself with firewood, "Did you hear that? Someone's crying outside our house. It's a woman." Aunt Yu's husband's surname was Zhang. He was the cousin of the village chief, Zhang Difu. When his wife said that, he immediately pricked up his ears to listen. After listening for a while, his expression changed. There really was a woman crying outside. The villagers had always been superstitious. Hearing a woman crying in the middle of the night made their hair stand on end. A layer of cold sweat broke out on their back. Aunt Yu listened again and seemed to think of something. She whispered, "It's coming from next door. Is Sun Dongqing back? Or is Yi Ying back?" The villagers were still used to calling her Yi Ying. "Let's ignore whoever comes back. Let her cry. Hurry up and cook. Eating so late every day, your grandchildren will be hungry with you. Tomorrow, when our son and the others come back from Guangdong province, they will see that their grandson has lost weight. You have to take it easy." "You're really not going?" "No." Hearing this, Aunt Yu threw away the spatula in her hand and wiped her hands on her scarf. She picked up a pair of tongs from the stove and gritted her teeth. "I'm going to take a look. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep well tonight." After Aunt Yu finished speaking, she rushed out of the kitchen with the fire tongs. When she opened the courtyard door and came out, she stood at the doorway and looked ahead. She saw a figure rushing straight towards the entrance of the village. The figure ran quickly and hurriedly, as if afraid of being discovered. When Sun Ying heard the commotion next door, she didn't dare to cry anymore. She didn't even wipe her tears as she ran away in a panic. "Who's in front? Stop right there." When Aunt Yu saw this, she was no longer afraid. She raised her voice and started running. "Stop right there. Stop right there." Sun Ying had already recognized the voice of the village's famous long-tongued woman, Aunt Yu. It was impossible for her to stop and she ran even faster. Chapter 3351. However, Aunt Yu's voice was very loud. When she shouted, the villagers living along the village road naturally heard her. In addition, the surroundings were quiet in the middle of winter. Even the slightest sound could be amplified infinitely. Thus, Aunt Yu's loud voice was clearly heard by several villagers. However, they didn't take it to heart, thinking that Aunt Yu was chasing after her mischievous grandchildren. Taking advantage of the hazy night, Aunt Yu could vaguely make out the silhouette of a young lady. Since she ran so fast, it was definitely a young lady. Moreover, she had cried so loudly in front of Yijifan's house. The astute Aunt Yu guessed who it might be. However, she didn't shout out the name of the person she guessed. Instead, she shouted as she ran, "Damn thief, what did you steal from our village? Tao Er's mother, Tao Er's mother. Quick, block it. There's a thief in the village. Help. There's a thief in the village. There's a thief in our village." With her shout, the villagers who hadn't figured it out yet knew that she wasn't chasing after her grandchildren, but a thief. Sun Ying, who was running, was so angry that her internal organs started to hurt. She actually called her a thief. However, she panicked even more. Her shout would definitely attract the villagers who locked the door. At this moment, Sun Ying regretted not letting Xie Sifeng's boyfriend park the motorcycle in the village. She had to run a few hundred meters to get out. Sun Ying, who had secretly returned to the village, was afraid that the villagers would come out to block her, so she ran forward with all her might. However, Aunt Yu's loud voice wasn't just for show, especially when she shouted things like, "a thief in the village." Only different sounds of doors opening could be heard in the silent night. Hua! Bang! Creak! When the door opened, a villager rushed out of the house and shouted, "Where's the thief? Where's the thief?" There were also villagers who shouted, "Ah, do you want to die? How dare you steal from our village? Catch the thief! Catch the thief! There's a thief in the village! Come out and catch the thief!" When Aunt Yu saw this, her voice became louder and louder, like a loudspeaker, so that the entire village could hear her. Sun Ying, who had not run out yet, was already scared. She heard the sound of the door opening and the villagers shouting. She saw that the villagers living at the entrance of the village were all lit up. Even the lights in the courtyard were lit up. Sun Ying, who was about 300 meters away from the motorcycle, stopped in her tracks. She decided to walk instead of running. She needed to walk past the villagers who were blocking her way. She lowered her head and no longer looked up, allowing the glaring torchlight to shine on her body. The snow-white light was like an X-ray, exposing her entire body in front of everyone, making it impossible for her to escape or retreat. Isn't this Sun Dongqing's daughter? When did you return to the village? Really? Shine it on her face and let me take a look? A flashlight shone on Sun Ying's head. Even though she was walking with her head lowered, the villagers who had watched her grow up recognized her immediately. It really is her. Why did he sneak back to the village? She even let Aunt Yu treat her as a thief. Of course he has to sneak back. An unfilial daughter who doesn't even acknowledge her own father has no face to return to the village. The familiar voice rang out in front of her. Every sentence was like a slap to her face, causing her to feel a burning pain. Chapter 33:52. These people all knew her, and she also knew them. The woman who called her an unfilial daughter had given her snacks in front of Yi Qian countless times because her family was the only one in the village who owned a small store. Every time the village leaders held a meeting, they would get some cigarettes and alcohol from her store. Therefore, she had to coax her. But now, she was the one who scolded her the fiercest. "Aya, isn't this Yiying? Aya, I say, Yiying, why is a girl like you always scaring people? I was cooking in the kitchen when I suddenly heard a woman crying outside. I was so scared that I broke out in a cold sweat. Why didn't you stay at home in the middle of the night? Why did you run outside and cry? I don't know what time it is. If you had told me, I wouldn't have been scared no matter how hard you cried." Aunt Yu, who had caught up to them, gasped for breath as she patted her chest. She looked as if she had been scared sick. Sun Ying bit her lower lip and didn't say anything. She only lowered her head and walked forward. There was nothing to say to these people. When her father was still alive, who didn't coax her? Who didn't praise her? Who didn't think that she was better than Yi Qian? But now? Everyone's attitude changed. Her father was gone, and her mother was in prison. They dared to bully her, an orphan with no one to rely on. Sun Ying couldn't help but clench her fists. She bit her lower lip so hard that it bled. If Yi Qian was here, she would find the scene in front of her very similar to her previous life. In her previous life, when Yi Qian returned to Shuku village, he was also talked about like this by the villagers. His silver tongue made her afraid to return to the village, and she didn't dare to have any contact with anyone in the village. Now, it was Sun Ying who experienced what Yi Qian went through in her previous life. This was what Buddhists called karma. She's not called Ying now. She doesn't even recognize her biological father. She changed her surname and took after her mother. Yi Jifan is also quite pitiful. I've only said that husband and wife are birds in the same forest. When disaster strikes, they fly away separately. I've never heard of a child who doesn't even care about his own parents. Isn't she just like Sun Dongqing? If it wasn't for her sister, Sun Xueqing, how could Yi Jifan, an outsider, become the village chief of our village? How could he become a provincial official step by step? Sun Xueqing definitely didn't expect that after risking her life to fight for a good future for her younger sister's family, she was just an ingrate who almost ruined her own daughter's life. Isn't that so? Of course, the child raised by an ingrate is also an ingrate. I wouldn't be surprised if one day she doesn't even want her mother. It's a good thing that Yi Qian didn't let us down and wasn't harmed by this family of ingrates. Retribution, this is really retribution. I wanted to harm Yi Qian, but I ended up harming myself. I deserve it. Is the village chief here yet? This kind of unfilial daughter should not return to the village. Everyone in our village has the surname Zhang. The Yi family was originally an outsider. We shouldn't have taken them in back then. Go and call them. Let the village chief say something later. This kind of heartless thing shouldn't return to the village anymore. She's ruining the culture of our village. The village chief, Zhang Difu, arrived late. When he saw Sun Ying, his face couldn't help but darken. Sun Ying, since you're back, I have a few things to say to you. Don't come back to our village anymore. We plan to sell the foundation of your house. We'll send you the money from the sale. Give me an address. Your family is originally an outsider. You shouldn't stay in our village. After the sale of the house, you're no longer a resident of our village. You've already moved your household register. You're no longer a resident of our village. Don't come back anymore. Chapter 33:53. Selling her home, selling her family's land, and using her entire family's household register as a reason for her to never return to the village again? This is too much, too much. Not only did the village chief not uphold justice for her, he even colluded with the villagers to bully her. Sun Ying's fists clenched tighter and tighter as she raised her head. Under the snow-white light of the flashlight, the villagers saw a face full of hatred. She was clearly a young girl in her prime, but the hatred in her eyes made the villagers' hearts tremble. Sun Ying glared at village chief Zhang Difu without moving. In the cold wind, she gritted her teeth and spoke in a voice dripping with coldness. What right do you have to sell my home and my family's land? What right do you have to not let me come back? I was born here and grew up here. What right do you have to drive me away? What right do you have? Little girl, you're still competing with us, aren't you? You're still asking us what right do we have? If we say it out loud, don't be so embarrassed that you'll kill yourself in front of us. Ba ba ba. It's the new year, how inauspicious. Auntie Yu, who had suffered countless losses at the hands of Sun Dongqing, would not let go of such a good opportunity. Now that Sun Ying had opened her mouth, it was as if she had found an outlet for her stomach full of words. Village Chief Zhang Difu did not say anything, but she had already rattled off a long string of words. Let's put it this way. Your Yi family used to flee to our village. Our Zhang village pitied your family and gave you a piece of land, so your grandfather's family had a place to stay. This piece of land does not belong to anyone else, it belongs to my family. Now my family wants to take it back. Seeing that you have no one to rely on, we'll give you some money as compensation. Don't ask us what right do we have. Heaven is watching what people do. Your family enjoyed the good fortune of Yi Qian's mother, but you didn't know how to repay her kindness. Now that you've suffered retribution, you deserve it. Little girl, you've always been scheming since you were young. Even an adult like me has suffered a lot in your hands. Back then, I didn't make a fuss about it because your father still knew how to be a decent person. Otherwise, if your mother who's currently in prison was still around, she wouldn't even need to chase you out today. She would have chased your whole family out more than 10 years ago. Now that your father is no longer around, you've all enjoyed the good fortune that Yi Qian's mother left for you. You're an ingrate who doesn't even want your own father. Everyone in the village is afraid that you'll lead the village astray in the future and cause all the girls in the family to learn from you. It's better to send you away as soon as possible so that you don't ruin the village's culture and cause all the unmarried girls to learn from you. Aunt Yu's words were like firecrackers. Village Chief Zhang Difu couldn't get a word in edgewise. Of course, there were times when he didn't have to say everything out loud. There were times when it was more appropriate for the villagers to step forward than for him, the village chief. Just like now, the villagers were more suitable than him to step forward. He didn't open his mouth to stop them. Tao Er's mother, whom Aunt Yu had just called out, also made sarcastic remarks. What's the point of saying so much? Their whole family has done so many shameful things. How can they still have the face to stay in our village? In the past, I only thought that Sun Dongqing, that black-hearted person, only had bad words for Yi Qian. It was fine as long as she didn't treat him badly in terms of food, clothing, and other things. Who knew that she had done so many wicked things behind his back? People say that daughters resemble their mothers. With Sun Dongqing's black-hearted heart, it's not surprising that she gave birth to an equally black-hearted daughter. Village chief, hurry up and ask her to leave. It's the new year. Don't make our entire village feel uncomfortable. Chapter 33:54. After Tao Er's mother finished speaking, the villagers who hadn't spoken much all agreed. That's right, that's right. Let her go quickly. Don't ruin the atmosphere in our village. She really can't stay. It's almost the new year, and the young people who go out to work are rushing back home. I'll be scared if she stays for one more day. Don't follow her example. The villagers had always been straightforward and said whatever they thought. Moreover, Sun Dongqing's popularity was notoriously bad. She had relied on Yi Jifan's management for so many years to gain a foothold in the village. Now that Yi Jifan had left, the villagers, who already disliked Sun Dongqing, naturally banded together to exclude her. At this moment, even though Sun Ying had a gun in her arms, she was still at a disadvantage. Faced with the villagers' chatter, one by one, they were all targeting her. One after another, Sun Ying could not refute a single word. She was so angry that her body trembled. She wanted to scold them for being a bunch of snobs. She wanted to scold them for being fickle. She wanted to scold all the villagers present, including the village chief Zhang Difu. She really wanted to do so, but she could only think about it in her heart. She could only scold them in her heart. She couldn't really scold them out loud. If she really scolded them, she wouldn't be able to leave the village tonight. Seeing this, the village chief Zhang Difu couldn't help but sigh softly in his heart. He had a good relationship with Yi Jifan. When Yi Jifan was still the mayor of Fujian town, he often went to the town for meetings. Because they were from the same village, he more or less got some benefit. If the villagers had any problems, they would go to Yi Jifan. He was also quite willing to help. However, he couldn't stand Sun Dongqing, this woman, being a hindrance, and the neighborly relationship was slowly eroded. None of the women in the village had never argued with Sun Dongqing. Even the most honest woman in the village had been angered by Sun Dongqing to the point of losing her temper. Now that the Yi family had fallen, Old man Yi left the house that Sun Yaozu had built for Yi Qian and left the village to live with his daughter, Yi Qian. Even the most promising one, Yi Qian, couldn't return to the village. After a few years, how many families would still remember the Yi family? Since Sun Ying had changed her surname and broken her roots, how could she stay in the village? It would be better to give it away as soon as possible and ask for a sum of money for her. It could also be considered that he had repaid Yi Jifan for his friendship back then. Zhang Difu, who had a myriad of emotions, cleared his throat and said to the villagers who were still talking, "For the sake of her father's good deeds for our village, all of you should stop talking. Everyone, go back to the house. I'll send her off." This was to save some face for Sun Ying. Sun Ying, who only felt that she had been humiliated, did not appreciate it. Today, she had seen clearly how ugly and dirty these people were. She disdained to associate with such people in such a place. Sun Ying, who had been suppressing her anger all this time, heard this, and the anger in her heart burned even more fiercely. She lost control of her mouth and said in a sharp voice, "You don't need to pretend. Do you think I want to come back here? After I left, I never thought of coming back. I don't need you to send me off. I will leave on my own. After I left here, I never thought of coming back." Sun Ying was a proud person. After suffering so much, she couldn't bear it anymore. If she didn't say a few words, she would definitely not give up. Since she never thought of coming back, she naturally didn't need them to drive her away. "I really feel sorry for my father. When he was alive, he actually helped a group of heartless people. TSK, don't worry. My father may be stupid, but I'm not stupid." Chapter 33:55. Sun Ying, who had finished her sentence in one breath, finally felt relieved. She could not open her eyes because of the torchlight. She raised her hand to cover her forehead and walked away gloomily. The villagers, who were about to leave after hearing Zhang Difu's words, suddenly became angry. As soon as she left, Aunt Yu stopped her and scolded, "You're quite stubborn. If you're really that good, why did you come back tonight? If you're that good, don't come back. You're really the same as Sun Dongqing. You can really infuriate people with your mouth. You must remember what you said tonight. Don't ever reply to me again." When Sun Dongqing was mentioned, the villagers became even angrier. More and more villagers came over. One of them asked how she came back, and another asked how she came back. Almost all the villagers who lived at the entrance of the village had come. When they heard Sun Ying's words, their expressions changed. They looked at Sun Ying with more and more hostility. "Go, go, don't dirty our village's ground. Your mother has long despised our village. Since you're just like your mother, don't come back. Our village doesn't welcome you. Go, 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 go as far as you can. It's best if you never come back to our village." The villagers who were angered by Sun Ying no longer bickered with her just because she was a little girl. They saw the shadow of a second Sun Dongqing in her. Their village did not need a second Sun Dongqing. At first, the villagers were just pointing at Sun Ying, but now, a few of them took a few steps towards Sun Ying. They looked like they were going to beat her up. Sun Ying was so frightened that her heart almost jumped out of her chest. She even reached her hand into her pocket to touch the delicate pistol. Sun Ying, who was frightened, clenched her cheeks tightly. She thought to herself, "I really want to pull out my gun and shoot a few of them to death." Endure, she had to endure. Before she found Yi Qian and got her revenge, she had to endure. Zhang Difu did not want to say anything more. He was also afraid that Sun Ying would be beaten up by the villagers if she continued to speak. For Yi Jifan's sake, he would send Sun Ying out of the village tonight and write off his friendship with Yi Jifan. Disperse, disperse, all disperse. She herself said that she won't come back, and she definitely won't come back in the future. You don't have to worry that the atmosphere in the village will be corrupted, and the young people will follow her example and go astray. Disperse, disperse. All of you go back. Don't you have children to take care of? The fire in the stove is still burning, right? Aren't you afraid that your children will play with fire? All of you want to play a few rounds tonight. Hurry up and get on the card table. Don't dawdle here and join in the fun. Village Chief Zhang Difu still had some prestige. With his words, Aunt Yu and the others couldn't continue to join in the fun. They snorted coldly and glared at Sun Ying before walking back home. How did Yi Jifan raise such an ingrate? She doesn't learn the good, but learns all the bad. She was raised by Sun Dongqing. How good can she be? Luckily, that girl Yi Qian has her own plans. Otherwise, if she continued to grow like before, there might have been a third Sun Dongqing. That Yi girl is amazing. Luckily, she has a plan in her heart and didn't turn bad. Now, she can be considered to have fought for her mother. Isn't that so? I really didn't think that this child who grew up without a mother and father would have such a bright future. No wonder Old Man Yi left the newly built red brick house to Yi Qian when he left. Old Man Yi is happy that his granddaughter has made a bright future. Chapter 33:56. Although Auntie Yu and the other women turned around and left after hearing the village chief's words, they didn't stop talking. The words that came out of their mouths were all heart-wrenching. Sun Ying could more or less hear the gist of what they were saying. Yi Jian's name was mentioned over and over again, and they were all praising Yi Jian. Sun Ying felt as if her chest was about to explode, and her sharp fingers were trembling in anger. Yi Qian was a nightmare to her. Sun Ying couldn't accept hearing her name, let alone hearing the villagers praising Yi Qian. She couldn't help but grip the pistol in her pocket tightly. It was as if the pistol in her pocket was the only thing that could give her a sense of security. It could calm the anger in her heart and give her more confidence to face the villagers surrounding her. Just now, when a villager took a few steps forward, Sun Ying almost couldn't control herself and pulled out her gun. Fortunately, her experience abroad made her more tolerant than before. She also knew who her ultimate goal was. Even if her heart was bleeding from the villagers' words, she endured it. She could only achieve great things if she could endure what others couldn't. Sun Ying finally understood Yi Jifan's advice back then. Unfortunately, she understood it too late. She was also glad that she understood it too late. Otherwise, Yi Qian would have a headache. She lowered her head again and stopped arguing with the villagers. Since Zhang Difu had already stepped forward, then let him continue to step forward. She didn't need to say anything. She just needed to wait and leave. Yi Qian didn't go home for the new year. Then, she had to go to her school personally. Finally, the smart Sun Ying knew how to weigh the pros and cons. She understood the severity of the situation. It was obvious that she was becoming more and more thoughtful. She had the shadow of the winner in her previous life, Yi Ying. On the other side, Zhang Difu said to the villagers who hadn't left yet and wanted to watch the show, the few of them who loved to watch the show the most have already left. Why are you still here? Sun Dongqing was a little cruel in the past, but that was the fault of an adult. It has nothing to do with a child. Now that she doesn't have a family and you have children of your own, don't tell me you want to make things difficult for a child? Disperse, disperse. Don't make things difficult for yourself during the new year. The village head spoke again, saying that it was all the fault of the adults and that it had nothing to do with a child. The villagers who were resentful towards Sun Dongqing thought for a while and decided not to continue to surround her. Forget it, even if Sun Dongqing was shameless, they were not. Gradually, the villagers dispersed. Zhang Difu was a good person to the end. He sighed at Sun Ying, who was trembling with anger. Let's go. I'll send you out of the village. When he saw Sun Ying's gloomy face, he lowered his head and tried to persuade her. Your mother used to be much harsher than she is now. You're her daughter, so bear with it. Your mother offended the neighbors too much back then and made them feel uncomfortable. It's already very good that they're only saying a few words now and not directly attacking you. Sun Ying, you can see the situation now. You really can't come back to our village. If you come back, even Uncle Zhang can't protect you. Don't worry, I'll send you the money as soon as I sell that piece of land. Your parents left a house for you outside. I heard that you still have some savings. You're a girl with a house and savings, so you can live a good life. When you're a little older, find a more honest man and marry him. Don't be like your mother, who was always unforgiving. In the end, everyone kicks a man who's down and implicates his children. Now, only Zhang Difu remembered that Yi Jifan had treated her well in the past and could still give Sun Ying a few words of advice. No one else would try to persuade her like this. Chapter 33:57. However, Sun Ying did not appreciate his kindness. In her eyes, village chief Zhang Difu was the same as the other villagers. They all flattered the strong and trampled on the weak. Now that her family had fallen and the fatherless Yi Qian had made a name for himself, the villagers wanted to make Yi Qian happy. Why would they care about their father's past relationship? Zhang Difu's persuasion only made Sun Ying hate him even more. If he really did it for her sake, why didn't the villagers say anything when they were talking about her? Why did they allow her to be bullied? Now they even wanted to curry favor in front of her. Bah! She, Sun Ying, did not need this kind of favor. One day, she would take revenge for all the humiliation she had suffered today. When that time came, she would see who would dare to say anything to her. Zhang Difu did not know that his kindness was not rewarded. He had done something that was difficult and unrewarding. Seeing that Sun Ying had remained silent and did not say anything, he thought that she had heard him. After sending Sun Ying out of the village, he said earnestly, "You're fine. You still have a long life ahead of you. Live your life well. Don't be like your mother. You have to know that in this world there are very few people who help you when you're in need, but there are many who kick you when you're down." He was also reminding Sun Ying not to be too ruthless, lest she end up like Sun Dongqing. When the villagers found out that Sun Dongqing had been sentenced to 10 years in prison, almost everyone in the village clapped and cheered. Aunt Yu even bought firecrackers and lit them up, saying that celebrating the sentence of the scourge of the village would make the village much quieter. Reality also proved that after Sun Dongqing was arrested, the villagers did not even quarrel anymore. If there were any small conflicts, they would just say a few words on the spot. After that, it did not matter. They would not harp on it like Sun Dongqing, who insisted on winning and making the other party bow down to her and apologize. In her previous life, Yi Qian was hurt by the rumors in the village and could not enter the village to meet people. It was village chief Zhang Difu who stepped in to stop Yi Qian from returning to the village so that she would not be bullied. In this life, it was his turn to persuade Sun Ying. Why did Yi Qian not have much affection for the place where she was born and raised in this life? It was because the villagers could not tell right from wrong most of the time. If someone said that someone was wrong, the whole village would believe that person was wrong. Although they were simple and willing to help others, they were still narrow-minded and narrow-minded. Their knowledge and experience determined how they conducted themselves. This left a deep wound in Yi Qian's heart, so much so that she did not really want to return to the village in this life. After Zhang Difu sent Sun Ying to the entrance of the village, he didn't ask her how she was going to leave. Leaving behind a sigh, he slowly walked back home. It was a good family, but in the end, the family was ruined and the people were dead. It made one sigh. Therefore, as a person, one should not be greedy, nor should one repay kindness with ingratitude. Otherwise, one would have to repay it sooner or later. Who could bear the feeling of suddenly falling from a high and mighty position? Xie Xifeng's boyfriend realized that the situation was not good, but he did not dare to start the motorcycle. He only dared to push the bike further away and hide the motorcycle in the ridge of the field. He walked back to hide it and paid attention to the surroundings. He did not dare to escape alone, because his girlfriend's classmate was now his god of wealth. It was not until the village chief had gone far away that he slowly walked out of the darkness after confirming that it was safe. Soon, the villagers living at the entrance of the village heard the sound of a motorcycle starting up, followed by a few roaring sounds as the motorcycle left the village. Only then did they realize that Yi Jifan's daughter had entered the village on a motorcycle. Early the next morning, Principal Chen only found out that Sun Ying had been blocked last night and had almost been beaten up. After finding out, he was silent for a long time. A student with good grades ended up ruined because of her parents' doting and improper upbringing. This was the fault of the parents. Chapter 33:58. Principal Chen didn't care much about what happened last night. Sun Ying had done all kinds of things to Yi Qian, so he couldn't sympathize with Sun Ying. He only knew that Sun Ying had repeated the same mistakes her whole life, and he had never seen her repent. The scout who had been monitoring Sun Ying reported what happened last night in a timely manner. Soon, Commander-in-Chief Xia Xinhui also learned about it. When he learned about it, his expression suddenly turned cold, and he immediately called Xia Angua from the National Defense. The suspect, Sun Ying, had a black net behind her, and although the person behind this black net had returned to the country, he had been active abroad before this. He had done a lot of bloodthirsty work, and he also knew a lot of people behind the scenes. His network of contacts was very wide, and it couldn't be ruled out that the person in charge of the mercenary group who had been trying to find Principal Chen was one of them. Xia Xinhui, who was in a high position, had always thought before taking one step. Since the person behind Sun Ying had such a big problem, it wasn't difficult to guarantee that Principal Chen's identity wouldn't be exposed. Things are a bit tricky. We can't directly detain her now. If she really exposed old Chen's identity. Xiangua's brows were slightly furrowed. After Chen Dongfeng retired, he had been active in Fujian town. He couldn't even return to his hometown in Chuan province. He didn't expect that a hidden danger would be exposed after so long. Xiangua's minister Xia was Commander-in-Chief Xia's brother. Both of them were in important positions and didn't have much contact with each other at work. However, when it came to the case of martyr Sun Xueqing's sacrifice, the number of office calls they made in a month was more than the number of calls they made in a year. Both of them were in high positions and had to more or less avoid arousing suspicion. Since we can't act rashly and alert the enemy, quickly inform Chen Dongfeng to return to the sniper base immediately. He can't go out at will for the next few years. Also, send a military order to the sniper base, emphasizing that every soldier needs to have a strong sense of military confidentiality. After Xia Angua finished speaking, Commander-in-Chief Xia pondered for a while and asked, "What stage is the investigation at now?" He was a little afraid that something had happened to Principal Chen and he couldn't explain it to Yi Qian. With the cooperation of the two major departments and the support of the military, the matter of martyr Sun Xueqing's sacrifice was becoming clearer and clearer. Now that the main culprit had been identified, there were also some people who had secretly been involved in the investigation. Once the final evidence was collected, they could bring the biggest culprit to justice and bring justice to martyr Sun Xueqing. At this critical juncture, he absolutely could not lose the big picture for the small. Sun Xueqing. Xia. Therefore, Principal Chen received a call from Yi Qian's future father-in-law as soon as he learned that Sun Ying had been ambushed last night. He had originally planned to stay in the village for the new year, so he immediately packed his luggage and set off for the sniper base that day. He didn't know how the higher-ups knew that his whereabouts might be exposed, but he knew that once his whereabouts were exposed, it would cause a lot of trouble. Fortunately, he looked different from when he had retired. Although he was worried, he wasn't scared to the point where he would panic. Chapter 33:59. To be on the safe side, the troops stationed at the mountaintop of Shuku village received orders from their superiors to increase the intensity of their patrols and include Shuku village as a key patrol village. At the same time, the village chief, Zhang Difu, also received a call from the town's armed forces, saying that there might be some movements recently and asking him to keep an eye out for any strangers in the village. Due to the fact that the villagers of Shuku village were adjacent to the army, soldiers from the army would often come over to spread the news during the village meetings. Therefore, they were much more vigilant than the villagers of other villages. After hearing about this, the villagers of Shuku village directly tied their domestic dogs to the door of the courtyard so that they would know immediately if there was any movement. On the eve of New Year's Eve, when thousands of families reunited, the whole country celebrated the Spring Festival together. Families of all ages sat in front of the television to watch the Spring Festival Gala. The sounds of firecrackers, fireworks, and laughter were everywhere. It was the most lively time of the year to bid farewell to the old and welcome the new. Far away in Guang Province, the veterans of Yi Qian and the Snowfield Brigade had already begun the drill between the two military regions. This time, they had a total of 20 Special Forces soldiers. They were divided into two teams and infiltrated the two military regions' drill troops to begin a third-party infiltration operation. The purpose of this training was to explore the combat methods of the army on the future information battlefield. It was to comprehensively test and evaluate the comprehensive abilities of the troops, such as detection, control, infiltration, attack, evaluation, and protection. The entire drill was a tactical exercise that revolved around an unfamiliar environment and lasted for 4 days. The two military regions sent out a total of 6,000 soldiers to conduct a tactical exercise in unfamiliar areas on New Year's Eve. Even the brigade commanders of the two military regions, who were in charge of the entire drill, did not know that a third party had infiltrated their troop. The Snowfield Brigade, who had infiltrated the two military regions, only took 3 hours to successfully infiltrate the two military regions and began their drill in an orderly manner. The Snowfield Brigade's drill was mainly to disrupt the tactics of the two military regions. They had to do everything they could to prevent the two military regions from fighting. At the same time, they had to release false information for the two military regions to identify. At the same time, they had to sneak into the fortresses of the two military regions and directly capture the brigade commanders of the two military regions. These were all done in secret, which suited the needs of the Snowfield Brigade the best. Yi Qian had broadened his horizons during this exercise. He had witnessed just how powerful the Snowfield Brigade was when it came to fighting in the dark. The two armies were planning to explore the tactics of the ground forces on the future information-based battlefield, so the Snowfield Brigade's veterans directly interfered with their plans and confused the main forces of the two armies for the first day. They had no idea what the other party was thinking. 3 hours before the exercise started, they were still fighting normally. But 3 hours later, neither army could understand what the other party was trying to do. It was as though they were fighting randomly. They went this way? Are you sure? The red team's brigade commander pointed at a certain location on the military map. This place was near the sea and surrounded by steep mountains. The blue team had actually sent their main forces to attack this place? Was there something wrong with his head? One was the highest point and the other was the lowest point. The person at the lowest point wanted to forcefully attack the highest point, and even sent out the main force, and completely exposed his weakest point. How much water had entered his brain to do such a brainless thing? Therefore, the red team's brigade commander could not believe that this was the blue team's tactic. And according to the information from the scouts and the current actions of the blue team, there was indeed something wrong with their heads. The red team's brigade commander wanted to pull the blue team's brigade commander's collar and scold him. Is there something wrong with his head? Why did he still come out and make a fool of himself? Chapter 3360. The red and blue brigade commanders were cursing each other in their respective camp. How could they come up with such a stupid strategy? The atmosphere in the commander-in-chief's tent was so tense that it felt like there was a thundercloud above their heads that could explode at any time. After the blue team cursed at the red team, The red team cursed at the blue team. As they cursed, they felt that something was wrong, especially when they heard that the two sides were readjusting their tactics. Both camps realized that there was something else going on. It seemed like someone had been secretly misleading them and passing on false information. This discovery made the brigade commanders of both sides change their expressions. They immediately deployed anti-reconnaissance tactics to prevent interference. At 6 o'clock on New Year's Eve, it was the time for the nation's reunion dinner. The red and blue teams detected that a third force had completed an immersive operation and had penetrated deep into their camp. The other party came prepared and was able to eavesdrop on our main intelligence. It's clear that their equipment is excellent. An immersive operation doesn't need too many people. One reinforced squad is enough. Pass down the order, increase patrols. Every squad needs to verify their identity. If any strange or suspicious person is found, immediately capture them alive. Yes, sir. The regimental commanders who received the order passed down the latest order from the brigade commander to each battalion, company, platoon, and squad. They increased the intensity of patrols to ensure that nothing went wrong. Yi Qian and Pigeon were in the same group. They infiltrated the red team's Nanguang military region and cooperated with the electronic warfare expert Y. They constantly interfered with the red team's information system. The red team's anti-interference operation was activated. Y became more and more excited as the battle went on. He kept in contact with the blue team's X through a wireless communication device. From time to time, he would adjust the radio, change the frequency, and use digital encryption to transmit digital information. He had to do this. Otherwise, if the red team's anti-interference electronic soldiers captured his radio waves, his identity would be exposed. In this small-scale exercise, Yi Qian witnessed Y's prowess. The entire wireless network was under his control. There were a few times when he was bold enough to chase after the red team's wireless frequency to complete real-time eavesdropping. This required excellent skills and extraordinary abilities. Otherwise, they would not be able to do it at all. Everyone had their own specializations. Yi Qian admired his comrade Y, but he never thought of learning from him. Even if he stood aside and watched, even if he did not understand, he still applauded his abilities. Now, based on the information you've collected and the video images, we can almost reach the general ledger. After quickly creating a tactical map and summarizing all the data and information, Y reported the latest situation to his comrades who had entered the blue team. Both sides have detected the infiltration of a third party. Now they've started counter-interference and counter-reconnaissance. You guys be careful. We'll retreat first. Xia Jinyuan, who was immersed in the blue team, received the latest news from the red team. He was discussing the next step of the battle plan with Project X. They planned to directly destroy the red team's command and guidance system. However, the red team said that they wanted to directly attack the red team's commander-in-chief. He could not help but squint slightly. Try to capture their brigade commander alive. If you succeed, report it to the military so that we can retreat early. He made a very bad suggestion, and all his comrades agreed. However, the pigeon whispered, "Aren't you being too disrespectful? After all, this was a drill between two military regions. If they were captured alive, how could the brigade commander show his face?" Chapter 3361. What's the point of saving face? This is just a drill. If one day the enemy really invades and captures the highest commander alive, do you think saving face or your life is more important? Just do it boldly. I've already told the military that we can do anything. Xia Jinyuan's smile was a little cold. Don't make too much of a commotion. Just kidnap the brigade commander secretly. After all, destroying the enemy's command center is not something we can do. We have to leave some work for the other brothers. We've already done all the work. It would be impolite to let others go home empty-handed. It's better to keep a low profile. The Snowfield Brigade was cooperating with the drill and was not the home field. It was just to raise the battlefield vigilance of the two armies. Once a third party invaded, they would know how to deal with it and whether they could detect the problem in time. But this time, it was obvious that the two military regions had miscalculated. They did not discover the problem in time, and it affected their strategy. When they realized that something was very wrong with the other party, they realized that a third party had infiltrated their team. As a third party, the Snowfield Brigade had the best individual combat system in the country. It had weapon subsystems, integrated helmet subsystems, software subsystems, wireless electronic systems, and defense subsystems. This was something that the Red and Blue armies could not compare to. It allowed the special forces of the Snowfield Brigade to complete individual combat quickly and catch the two military regions off guard. Fortunately, the brigade commanders of the Red and Blue armies were not to be trifled with. Both of them had experience in large-scale combat exercises. After they reacted, they immediately made corresponding arrangements. However, the special forces of the Snowfield Brigade were one step ahead of them. By the time the two military regions reacted, they had already arranged everything that they could. Xia Jinyuan and the others began to invade and destroy all aspects of the operation. The brigade commanders of the two armies also guessed the other party's purpose. If the other party's purpose was to destroy their own command center, they learned from the electronic countermeasure soldiers that the third party had the best individual combat system. As soon as they captured a trace, it would be immediately discovered by the other party and all traces would be destroyed in an instant, making it impossible for them to track it. Such a powerful individual combat system appeared in their information-based combat exercise. Once the entire command center was destroyed, the exercise would not be able to continue. Since it was different, it was most likely to be a decapitation operation, which was one of the favorite activities of both sides. This exercise was a cross-regional exercise, and there were not many people participating. Coupled with the fact that the area was vast, it would provide both parties with an advantage. At the same time, it would also make it more difficult for a third party to search. The area was too large, and it would not be easy to find the headquarters of the Red and Blue armies and complete the execution. Thinking of this, the two brigade commanders calmed down a lot. However, when they thought about how the other party had infiltrated their camp without them knowing and ruined their strategy, they were afraid that they would let their guard down no matter how calm they were. At the start of the exercise, the Snowfield Brigade took 3 hours to complete the invasion. It was not until 6 o'clock in the evening that the command centers of the two sides realized that the situation was not good. A third party had invaded. If it had been put on the battlefield, the entire army would have been wiped out long ago. The Snowfield Brigade Special Forces that invaded the Red Team's camp carried out a large-scale destructive operation at night. They destroyed the engineering barricades, cut off communications, and blew up the transportation route. Just these 10 people made the Red Team suffer a great deal in the middle of the night. The Red Team's brigade commander slammed the table and cursed, "Find them! Don't let any of them go! I'm going to skin them alive!" Chapter 3362. The Blue Team was relatively quiet in the first half of the night, but it started to get noisy in the second half of the night. It was useless to increase the patrols. When the sentries were found, they were tied up like rice dumplings and had backpacks stuffed in their mouth. When they saw their own people coming over, they cried out, which made the Blue Team so angry that they almost broke their teeth. During the 4-day exercise, the Red Team and the Blue Team had to capture the destructive force that infiltrated their camp and complete the tactical battle with the other party. Even though it was only a 4-day exercise, the people of the two military regions suffered many hidden losses. When Xia Jinyuan found out that he was asked to accompany 6,000 people to complete a small-scale exercise, he was not very happy from the beginning. It would be exciting to have tens of thousands of people and hundreds of days of exercise. It would be a joint exercise involving all the forces of the sea, land, and air forces. However, this was a direct military order from the military. No matter how unwilling he was in his heart, military orders were like mountains. A soldier's duty was to obey orders. Negative emotions such as unwillingness had to be kept away. He needed to complete the mission given to him by the military with a 100% correct attitude. He accepted the mission and asked if the military would not pursue the matter no matter what they did. Then, he came up with the bad idea of directly capturing the brigade commander alive. He had to let the two military regions know the consequences, otherwise they would have made a wasted trip. When the military knew that the third party was planning to capture the two brigade commanders alive, they couldn't help but laugh. They didn't know where the third party had sent the soldiers, but since the other party had said so, it proved that they had the confidence to do so. If they were not confident, they would not have arranged for them to destroy the strategy of the two military regions. Xia Jinyuan suggested that the red team capture the brigade commander alive, so he also planned to do so. However, the pigeon reminded him that if he only captured one side alive, it would be too embarrassing. It would be better to embarrass both sides. On the third day, let alone annihilating the third party, the two military regions didn't even know who the third party was and how many people they had. This made the commanders in charge of annihilating the third party so anxious that their hair turned white. As the regimental commander of a regiment in the Nangguang military region, Du Kaiwei originally needed to rely on this exercise to earn some merit so that he could be promoted. Who would have thought that the military headquarters would come up with such a perverted third party's infiltration and destructive warfare? It completely ruined his originally sure-to-win plan. He was the commander of the Nangguang military region and also the commander in charge of the encirclement and annihilation of the third party. From the moment he received the order until now, he did not know what the other party looked like or how many people they had. He only knew that no one could sleep at night. He only had to keep an eye on the surroundings and immediately be alerted if there was any movement. He had also looked for the technical soldiers and asked them if they had any clues. There was only one answer: none. Du Kaiwei knew that he had really picked up a hot potato, which would burn his palm until it was full of blisters. It was very likely that he would not be able to report back to his superiors. Keep a close eye on them. If they ruin it again, everyone will be mentally prepared to be severely punished, including me. None of you can escape. On the night of the third day, Du Kaiwei first went to the cookhouse to get a handful of chaotian pepper. When night fell, he held a chaotian pepper in his mouth and bit it from time to time. It was so spicy that his whole body trembled. It was a good way to refresh himself. The Spring Festival was coming. The outside world was celebrating the Spring Festival happily, but the atmosphere here was so low that they did not feel that it was the Spring Festival at all. They only felt that the past few days had been extremely difficult. Chapter 3363. The regiment commander himself had said that he would also be punished. The soldiers under him all tensed up. What they didn't know was that there were already a few pairs of eyes watching them in the dark, and their target was the regiment commander that they were talking about. In the dark, someone was using sign language to communicate. 4 of you surround him from the left and right and pin him down. 2 of you on the left, 2 of us on the right. Take care of the regiment commander. With night vision goggles, V8 and the others weren't affected by the darkness of the night at all. They used their fingers, palms and arms to complete the communication they could understand. Therefore, they maintained radio silence and only received Xia Jinyuan's orders, instructions and situation reports. They entered a hidden battle and couldn't make a sound to ensure the safety of themselves and their comrades. After the hand signal was completed, the 6 of them moved quickly. Their figures were like black leopards hunting in the middle of the night. Their speed was so fast that their figures almost became afterimages. The patrol only needed to turn around on the spot to complete the infiltration operation. Go! A crisp hand signal was sent out and the mouths of the 4 patrols were covered from behind. Then they received a heavy blow to the waist. In less than 3 seconds, V8 and the others had taken care of the 4 patrols and ripped off their armbands at the same time. Why are you still kicking when you're already dead? Behave. V8 covered the other party's mouth and leaned over to whisper into the patrol's ear, "Rest well. Look at how tired you've been these past few days. Hurry up and rest. I'll kick you again and show you who's boss." After being warned, the patrol stopped kicking. Instead, he widened his eyes to see clearly who was so strong that they could take him down in an instant. He didn't get a clear look at the other party's appearance, but he got a rough idea of the other party's equipment on their helmet. Just this rough idea made the patrol curse in his mind, F***CK. The helmet was a combination of night vision goggles and communications equipment for individual combat. Just the helmet alone was enough to tell the standard of this group of people. V8 saw that the other party had quieted down and let go of his hand. Now it was their turn to be on guard, so that their comrades who had sneaked over to capture the regiment commander would have nothing to worry about. The red and blue sides were fighting fiercely at the front. Logically speaking, the rear should be defended to the death. However, there were special forces from the Snowfield Brigade at the rear. It was difficult to defend to the death. The brigade commander from the Nongguang military region guessed that he would be the target of a third party. In order to not be beheaded, he had already found a safe place for himself. However, Du Kaiwei was not so lucky. From the moment he was targeted, he was destined to be captured alive. 2 black shadows pounced on him in a deadly fighting posture, not giving him much time to react. His mouth was covered and he was pressed to the ground, unable to move. It was not an easy task to capture the leader of the third force. In order to prevent being discovered, they immediately dragged Du Kaiwei, who had his mouth stuffed, back to their own safe zone. The corners of Xia Jinyuan's lips curled into a smile when he saw his comrades pushing someone back. However, when he learned from V8 that the person they brought back was a regiment commander with the surname Du, Xia Jinyuan patted V8's shoulder lightly and said in a low voice, "An important personnel. If I'm not wrong, this person is called Du Kaiwei. His father is the Deputy Chief of Staff Du of the General Staff Department." Fortunately, he didn't say anything earlier. Otherwise, he really couldn't guarantee that Du Kaiwei would not be able to recognize him from his voice. After all, in the eyes of the Deputy Chief of Staff Du, he was a mediocre person who couldn't be compared with Commander-in-Chief Xia. His wife also thought so. If a mediocre person captured a capable person like Du Kaiwei, Xia Jinyuan was worried that the Deputy Chief of Staff Du's heart would not be able to take it. Chapter 3364. V8 wiped his mouth and chuckled. He said softly, "He's unlucky, but I'm lucky. Who cares who his father is? I didn't know who his father was before I captured him, so I couldn't have chosen anyone to capture him. He can only blame himself for not patrolling properly and not setting up tight defenses. That gave us a chance to capture him. You said that the military department wouldn't have any objections no matter how we wreak havoc. His father, Deputy Chief of Staff Du, wouldn't have any objections because we captured his son. So what if we captured him? I'm not afraid." Xia Jinyuan was only worried that Du Kaiwei would recognize his voice. If Du Kaiwei recognized his voice, he would definitely mention it to the Deputy Chief of Staff Du by then. Old Du would have to listen to Old Du's sarcastic tone again. Old Du always had a personal grudge with Old Xia. Of course, it was Old Du's personal grudge, and Old Xia didn't take it to heart. If news of Old Du's son being captured by Old Xia's useless son, who was often scolded by Madame Li, Xia Jinyuan was worried that Old Du and his wife would be hospitalized when they found out. He was also worried that old Du's sarcastic tone would make old Xia's hair turn white again. The relationship between the two families was bad. The previous generation competed with their fathers, and now they competed with their sons. Old Du always felt that his eldest son was very capable, and old Xia was envious of him. This was something that old Du was proud of. If he knew that his son was captured by old Xia's son, his promotion would be ruined. Lieutenant Colonel Xia sighed heavily. Forget it, he didn't want to think about it. He was worried about the health of the Deputy Chief of Staff Du and his wife. He said to V8, "It's fine if we captured him. Even if the sky falls, there are tall men to hold it up. Don't worry or be afraid. If I can't hold it up, there's the Major General. If the Major General can't hold it up, there's our Commander-in-Chief. I'm not afraid as long as the two military districts don't know who we are. You even let Qing Niao and the others capture the brigade commander alive. The brigade commander is more important than the regiment commander. If they aren't afraid, why should I be?" V8 lifted his chin in disdain to show that he wasn't afraid. However, after he finished speaking, he immediately added, "Captain, when you go back, you must ask the higher-ups to continue concealing our identities. You don't have to give me any credit or anything like that. People who do big things don't care about such trivial things. We want to hide our achievements and names. We want riches and honor, but we can't be corrupted, we can't be swayed by poverty, and we can't submit to force." Idiot! Xia Jinyuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He kicked his comrade and said, "So be it. It's no big deal. Let's finish up here and do 2 more big things tonight. After that, we can almost leave." "Understood. I promise to complete the mission." Who was? He wasn't stupid. It didn't take long for him to understand why an infantry regiment commander was involved in this exercise. He messed up something that the other party was confident in, so the other party would definitely be angry. He had nothing to lose, but he was worried that his captain would be put in a spot. Since Xia Jinyuan said it was fine, it must be fine. V8 heaved a sigh of relief. Xia Jinyuan also looked at Du Kaiwei, who had no choice but to behave himself. This guy's luck was really bad. He actually came to annihilate a third party. Chapter 3365. He had been in the main regiment for 4 years now. It was time for him to be promoted. If he was promoted, he would have more power and a brighter future. This time, the 2 military regions sent out 6,000 soldiers to explore the army's combat tactics on the future informationized battlefield. The soldiers sent out were mainly used for informationized simulation battles. Sometimes there was no need to directly send soldiers to the battlefield. The battle was completely done through electronic information. With Du Kaiwei, an infantry regiment commander, joining in, it was not hard to see that the higher-ups intended this. As long as this exercise was successfully completed, his military rank and position would definitely be promoted. The higher-ups arranged for him to participate in the exercise and also arranged for him to encircle and annihilate a third force. They were sure that Du Kaiwei would definitely be promoted after this exercise. Who knew that not only did the people who arranged for him not help him, they even unknowingly screwed him over. Looking at Du Kaiwei, who was tied up like a dumpling by V8 and the others, with his mouth stuffed and eyes blindfolded by his backpack, Lieutenant Colonel Xia could not help but sigh for Du Kaiwei's bad luck. What was supposed to be a good thing was messed up by V8 and the others. Now that everyone knew that Du Kaiwei was captured alive, no matter how hard the Du family tried, Du Kaiwei would not only be promoted, he would also be severely criticized. With such bad luck happening at this critical juncture, Du Kaiwei would not be able to make a comeback for the next 3 years. Xia Jinyuan knew this very well. Similarly, the captured Du Kaiwei also knew this very well. The moment he was pinned down, he knew he was in big trouble. He thought about escaping, but he did not even have the chance to try. Du Kaiwei, who did not even have the chance to escape, was so angry that his lungs were hurting. What kind of people did the military send over? The exercise between the two military regions was their business. Why did they have to involve a third force? It was supposed to be an informationized battle, but now it became a hard battle. What was the difference? He had participated in countless exercises, big and small, but he had never been so embarrassed and humiliated as he was today. Two military regions had an exercise, 6,000 soldiers, and he, Du Kaiwei, was the captured regiment commander. Before the exercise was over, the news had already spread. He didn't even think about getting promoted. Now, he was only thinking about how to make up for what had happened. He couldn't move for nearly a year. Even if he wanted to move, it would have to wait a year. Du Kaiwei, who was tied up, lay there quietly. From the initial confusion, he slowly sorted out his thoughts. After more than 10 minutes, he finally calmed down. After he calmed down, he began to pay attention to the movements around him. When he felt that there were people around him, he pricked up his ears, trying to eavesdrop on some useful information from their conversations so that he could analyze what kind of people they were. But after waiting for almost half an hour, he did not hear a single word from these people. These people could complete large-scale arrangements with simple hand gestures. Their tacit understanding had reached a rather high level. Sometimes they only needed a glance to know what the other person was thinking. With such a high level of tacit understanding, coupled with their strength and the fact that the technical soldier had mentioned that the third party had excellent equipment, Du Kaiwei guessed that the third party who had infiltrated the blue team's camp was not an ordinary soldier, but a special forces soldier with rich combat experience. Which military region's special forces soldier was he from? Du Kaiwei furrowed his brows. Chapter 3366. The difficulty of an exercise involving special forces would be increased by several times. It was impossible for him to escape from the special forces. It was better to think about how to reflect on himself. Du Kaiwei, who was reflecting on himself, did not know that his brigade commander's face had darkened when he learned that he had been captured alive. His face was so dark that it could not get any darker. He was captured alive. It was better for a regiment commander to be killed in an exercise than to be captured alive. They gave him a chance, but he did not take it. He would not be able to move from his position for the next 1 or 2 years. He would stay in his position and reflect on himself. The commanders, political commissars, and chief of staff of the two military regions were paying close attention to the exercise. When they found out that a regiment commander of the blue team was captured alive, the commander's face darkened. Looking at the name of the captured regiment commander, the commander felt a lump in his throat. He gulped down a few mouthfuls of strong tea before he felt a little better. Du Kaiwei has always been steady in his work. He is not muddle-headed when it comes to important matters or small matters. Why did he make such a big mistake in this exercise? It is obvious that he did not realize the importance of information warfare in the future. That is why he underestimated the enemy. In the command center, the commander of Nongguang was furious. He criticized his subordinates one by one. Occasionally, he would even scold them. The officers who were listening kept quiet out of fear. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. They did not expect the army to come up with a third party. It was not until 3 hours into the exercise that the army notified them. Now that things had turned out this way, it was very ugly in all aspects. At 1 o'clock in the morning on the third day of the exercise, the Snowfield Brigade Special Forces that infiltrated the two military regions once again launched their interference battle strategy. The leaders sitting in the command center saw flames on the screen. The rear was on fire, the front was fighting hard, and both sides were counter-reconnaissance and counter-reconnaissance. The momentum was so great that everyone was tense. They completely forgot that it was time to rest in the early hours of the morning. It was as if they were fighting in the day. When the two sides entered the battle, Xia Jinyuan said to V8, "Go and release him. Do it quickly. Don't let him see you." "Not tomorrow? Why don't you turn on your helmet light after you release him, shine it on your face, and tell him who you are while you're at it?" V8's mouth twitched. That's right. If he let her go during the day, wouldn't he be completely exposing himself? V8 chuckled. He let Du Kaiwei go at around 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. Du Kaiwei thought that he would make a fool of himself the next day, but he never thought that he would be able to get away in the middle of the night. The person who released him first released his hands and feet, then removed the strap of the backpack that was stuffed into his mouth. By the time he removed the blindfolded backpack strap himself, the person who was originally standing behind him had disappeared in just a few seconds. He didn't even see the shadow of the other party. Du Kaiwei circled the place a few more times but still didn't see anyone. He stood there with a cold face and didn't move for a long time. These people came and went without a trace. Which special forces were they? He wondered if the commander knew about this. But even if he knew, he couldn't tell him. He didn't have the guts to ask. He just had to think about how to get through the next few days. On the other hand, the Snowfield Brigade, which had been operating in the wee hours of the morning, was obviously blocked off. Both the red and blue teams were well prepared and had deployed a large number of troops to counterattack the third team. Yi Qian, who had infiltrated the red team, was almost defeated by the red team due to his lack of experience. Chapter 3367. Yi Qian had experience fighting overseas and knew how to protect himself, but he was still lacking a little bit. Major General Yang cherished talents, so he tried his best to arrange opportunities for Yi Qian. Even for this exercise, the special forces that were originally sent out were not the Snowfield Brigade. However, Major General Yang personally requested for the Snowfield Brigade, which was hated by both military regions, to be included. He had been paying attention to the entire exercise and knew that Yi Qian was almost attacked on the last night. The exercise was not over yet, but he was already prepared to let Yi Qian write at least a 5,000-word report on the exercise. On the fourth day of the exercise, Yi Qian, who had infiltrated the red team, began to withdraw. As for capturing the brigade commander alive, Major General Yang asked Yi Qian to stop and let the blue team handle the task of destroying the command post. This was because the confrontation between the two military regions was very exciting. When they were fighting against a third party, both sides were obviously inexperienced. The weaknesses that were exposed were enough to cause a few hurricane-like movements. It was better for the Snowfield Brigade to withdraw early. Since they had already exposed the weaknesses of both sides, there was no need to make things too ugly. After the exercise ended, neither side was in a good position. The commanders' faces were always gloomy. When they shook hands after the exercise ended, there was only one expression on both commanders' faces. It was so cold that it made everyone's heart tremble. Later, it was said that both commanders went to the capital to beg for forgiveness. When they returned, the leaders of both military regions were severely criticized, especially Du Kaiwei, who was directly reported. It was obvious how angry the commander of Nanguang was. When the military headquarters saw that the exercise was so unsightly, several military orders were issued. Other than the troops stationed at the border who were not implicated, all the other military regions put their necks on the knife rack. You want a holiday for the Spring Festival? No way. Go back to training. However, the two military regions also learned a lot from this exercise. Through this exercise, the focus was on how should we deal with a third party's invasion calmly? After a long and time-consuming summary, they sorted out 7 major shortcomings and formulated detailed improvement measures. They also specified the person responsible for the improvement and the time limit for improvement. This was to prevent problems before they happened. Yi Qian, who had returned to the capital to accompany old Master Fu and Father Fu, did not know that the two military regions were criticized. She also needed to write a 5,000-word report on the exercise. She needed to clearly point out her own shortcomings and discuss the shortcomings of the two military regions in this exercise from a third party's point of view. Yi Qian did not return to the capital first. Instead, she reported to the military headquarters first. During the Spring Festival, the military headquarters was even more serious than before. There were no Spring Festival couplets or lanterns. It was the same as before, solemn, and military prestige. This was the center of a country. What it needed was not liveliness, but the dignity of a country. Outside the gate there were sentries with guns. Not one of the 3 sentries was missing. They did not relax because of the Spring Festival. Instead, they were stricter than usual. It was lively outside during the holidays, but the national defense deployment was stricter than ever. This was because history told everyone that every major sneak attack was related to a major holiday. Therefore, the national defense deployment had to be even stricter. It was better to be safe than sorry. Yi Qian walked into the military headquarters with a relaxed expression. However, when she walked out of the military headquarters, her expression turned cold. Just now, Major General Yang had talked to her alone for a long time. Every word of advice had benefited her greatly. It was because of this that she understood how important she was to the military headquarters. Chapter 3368. Importance equated to responsibility. The more importance she placed on someone, the more responsibility she had to shoulder so that she could wear the military uniform without regret. The heavier the responsibility, the more strict she had to be with herself. She could not afford to be careless. Responsibility was heavier than a mountain, that was how it was. She had to be worthy of this importance, and she had to be able to shoulder this responsibility. Yi Jian, who walked out of Major General Yang's office, forgot about Xia Jinyuan who was waiting for her. She was lost in her thoughts. She left Xia Jinyuan alone and walked out of the military headquarters. The conversation between Major General Yang and her replayed in her mind from time to time. Just because you've participated in several actual battles doesn't mean you have a lot of experience. Every battle is different from the last. Every battle is unpredictable and full of danger. Even a veteran general who has experienced hundreds of battles can't be sure if he can survive the next battle. Therefore, you can't let your guard down in every battle. You have to know how to summarize, how to use your strengths, and how to avoid your weaknesses. Yi Jian, youth is your capital, and talent is your weapon. Because you have talent that others don't have and intelligence that others can't reach, I hope you will cherish your talent. Don't waste this weapon that can help you go further in the future and protect you for the rest of your life. When Major General Yang and Yi Qian were talking, he did not get angry because Yi Qian had almost been defeated by the red team. Instead, he broke down Yi Qian bit by bit and told her where she needed to improve. He was very patient and taught Yi Qian like an elder. There was no doubt that Yi Qian was extremely lucky in this life. She had met elders who were wholeheartedly considerate of her, so she would never lose her way. She would always run towards the light and never be swallowed by darkness. As she walked out of the military headquarters, Xia Jinyuan returned to Major General Yang's office. She left? When did she leave? Major General Yang was on duty during the Spring Festival. He was handling daily affairs. When he saw Xia Jinyuan return and ask him where Yi Qian had gone, he couldn't help but laugh. She left about 10 minutes ago. You've been waiting for her outside? Yes, I just bumped into an old acquaintance and chatted for a while. When Xia Jinyuan heard that his girlfriend had been gone for more than 10 minutes, he was no longer in the mood to chat with the Major General. He hurriedly chased after her and said, "Thank you for your hard work. I don't have anything else to do, so I won't disturb you any longer. I wish you a happy new year and a happy family." This brat is like Yi Qian's follower. Since it was the Spring Festival, Major General Yang could not help but tease him. He deliberately said, "You're fine, but I still have something to do. Why don't you stay and share my burden so that I can get off work early and go home to accompany my granddaughter?" Major General Yang was in his 50s this year and only had one daughter. His granddaughter was already 8 years old. "Don't work too late. The next time I go to your house, I'll buy a set of dolls for your granddaughter. Goodbye, Major General." Xia Jinyuan did not want to stay and work overtime. He only had 3 days to stay in the capital, and he needed to go to the Fu family to coax old Master Fu and his future father-in-law. Major General Yang more or less knew about the relationship between Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian. However, the two of them had always restrained themselves and did not let it affect their work, so Major General Yang pretended not to know. However, if it affected their work, one of them would definitely be transferred out of the Snowfield Brigade. This was the last thing Major General Yang wanted to see. It was also the main reason why he did not support their relationship. Chapter 3369. However, Major General Yang did not say it out loud. Since the two of them had no intention of making their relationship public, there was no need for him to expose it. However, there were some things that he had to remind them of. The two of you still need to maintain an appropriate distance from each other. After all, you are a male soldier and she is a female soldier. You need to pay attention to your image. Don't spread any unpleasant words that might affect you and Yi Qian. In the military, relationships between men and women were not as lenient as society. Men and women were treated equally in the military. If they were to be punished, they would be punished together. There was no gender distinction. With Xia Jinyuan's intelligence, how could he not guess that Major General Yang was reminding him? He had already walked to the door when he turned back and replied seriously, "Don't worry, the relationship between Yi Qian and I will not affect our work. We will not make it public either." Major General Yang did not want to expose him, so Xia Jinyuan decided to just say it out loud so that Major General Yang would know that he and Yi Qian were indeed together. Major General Yang's mouth twitched uncontrollably. Then, he picked up a file on his desk and threw it directly at Xia Jinyuan. "You bastard! You have ulterior motives." No. Just take it that I won't hide anything from you and will report everything to you, no matter how big or small. It's getting late. You can get off work now. I will leave first." Of course, Xia Jinyuan denied it. How could he admit that he had ulterior motives? He picked up the folder that did not hit him and put it back on the table with a smile. He said, "I just have a little bit of selfishness. I'm sure you don't want Yi Qian to be wronged. With you watching over him, I feel more at ease than my dad." He did have a little bit of selfishness in mind. His little fox was also a military academy student. Although military academy students were not prohibited from dating, there was a species in this world that was jealous of others. His little fox was outstanding enough that it was normal for her to be envied by others. If this species were to find out about it, they might report it behind his back. As he was in the army, he would not be able to make an appearance in time. There was also Major General Yang, who knew about his relationship with his little fox, so it was best for him to make an appearance. Major General Yang guessed his thoughts and said that he had ulterior motive. "Don't worry, I'll pass on your exact words to the Commander-in-Chief." Major General Yang looked at Xia Jinyuan, who had suddenly become much more respectful, and said jokingly, "Let's see how the Commander-in-Chief will deal with you when he finds out." It was perfectly justified for a father to teach his son a lesson. Xia Jinyuan expressed that he was not afraid at all. On the contrary, Commander-in-Chief Xia would definitely applaud his quick-wittedness if he found out. After all, Little Fox was the daughter-in-law that his father was most satisfied with. He was so satisfied that his daughter-in-law was more important than his son. Major General Yang couldn't help but shake his head with a smile as he watched the subordinate he was most proud of leave his office. This brat, he was mischievous when he was young, but now he was full of schemes when he grew up. If he found Yi Qian, the two of them would be a perfect pair, and they would be able to achieve great things. As for him, he was willing to shoulder some of the burden for the two of them. At this time, no one would have thought that Xia Jinyuan's precautionary measures would actually allow Yi Qian to escape the disaster. When they walked out of the military headquarters and reached the high stairs, Xia Jinyuan took a few steps forward to catch up with his girlfriend. At the same time, he held the phone in his hand, which was only accessible when he walked out of the military headquarters building, and called Yi Qian. It was only after they walked out of the military headquarters that Yi Qian remembered that his boyfriend was still waiting for him. He also called Yi Qian's phone. Both their phones received a notification saying, "The number you have dialed is busy, please try again later." Yi Qian quickly hung up the phone and waited for Xia Jinyuan to call him again. Chapter 3370. Xia Jinyuan quickly dialed again and got through. He said helplessly, "Did you forget something?" Yes, she forgot about her boyfriend. Yi Qian, who had forgotten about her boyfriend, replied guiltily, "I didn't forget anything. When are you coming over? I've been waiting for you outside for a long time." Luckily, she didn't leave in a car, or else she wouldn't even have an excuse to cover up her lie. Xia Jinyuan didn't believe her. She had obviously forgotten about her boyfriend. Feeling stifled, Lieutenant Colonel Xia sighed and said, "You're too insignificant. How could you forget something so important?" Ha ha ha. Even though she had an excuse to cover up her lie, Yi Qian laughed awkwardly and quickly changed the topic. "I'm waiting for the car outside. Is there anything else? If there's nothing else, can you accompany me home?" He had to go home together. He had to pay Old Master and his future father-in-law a New Year's greeting. According to the old customs of Shuku village, a married woman had to return home on the second day of the new year. Today was already the third day of the new year, and he had already returned home 1 day late. He couldn't let Old Master and his future father-in-law wait for too long. Now that he had a wife, Xia Jinyuan temporarily placed his home as his second priority. He had no choice. His family was even more anxious than him. Yi Qian soon waited for her forgotten boyfriend. Her boyfriend, who had an imposing appearance, walked over in a military coat. He was tall and slender, and every step he took exuded the piercingly cold aura of a soldier. Yi Qian's eyes lit up as she watched from outside. When a handsome man wore a handsome military uniform, he would make people's eyes stare straight at him. And this man who could make people stare at him was her, Yi Jian's man. Even Yi Jian, who was not moved by beauty, could not help but rub her fingers in the dark. She really wanted to touch him a few times. Xia Jinyuan was on the phone with his family Xia. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was accompanying his parents for the new year, said very solemnly over the phone, "When you visit during the spring festival, you must be very polite. Remember to bring some gift. You must be considerate." As his future in-laws, Commander-in-Chief Xia had already figured out what Old Master and Father Fu liked about each other. He told Xia Jinyuan everything and told him to be prepared and not to be impolite. Going to the girl's house on New Year's Eve meant that his identity had changed from a boyfriend to a prospective son-in-law of the Fu family. How could he be careless about such a joyous occasion? Commander-in-Chief Xia did not hide his instructions from his family. Moreover, it was already past 8 in the evening, and the family was sitting around the tea room chatting. As soon as he mentioned it, everyone stopped chatting and listened attentively. Let sixth brother accompany Old Master. Don't miss home and don't be in a hurry to go home. Madame Fu was worried that her grandson would miss home, so she went to the Fu family tonight and rushed back to the family Xia tomorrow. She reminded him carefully, "It's very lively at home. It doesn't matter if sixth brother and his wife don't come home. son, daughter, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, granddaughter, and great-grandson. Family Xia's house was so lively that the sound of laughter could be heard through the walls. In contrast, old Master Fu, who lived in Dangue Garden, was much quieter. Including Xia Jinyuan, there were only 4 people. Madame Fu was kind and old Master Fu was benevolent. They could not bear to leave old Master Fu without a junior to talk to. Accompany old Master Fu well. Your grandma and I don't have to worry. When Xiaoyi marries into our family Xia, there will be plenty of time. We don't have to be in a hurry. Old Master Fu also reminded him carefully. After Yi Qian finished greeting Madame Fu and old Master Fu, the 2 elders reminded Yi Qian again. This made Yi Qian's heart feel as warm as the sun, so warm that there were tears flowing out of his eyes. Chapter 33-71. Family Xia was benevolent and righteous, which was why it remained standing even after going through so many ups and downs. Benevolence and righteousness was the highest standard of traditional morality, and it was also the standard of governing a family Xia. Only by governing a family this way could it last long and prosper. Then, old Madame Xia's kind voice sounded again. Did you and Ah Yuan just return to the capital? I don't think you've prepared any New Year gift. How about this? I'll ask the driver to send them over now. It will take some time for you to get to Dangue Garden from the military headquarters. It's closer to Dangue Garden, so we'll meet at the entrance of the park. Jane Eyre, what do you think of Grandma's arrangements? She didn't forget to ask for Yi Qian's opinion and put Yi Qian in charge. She used the speakerphone, so before Yi Qian could refuse, Xia Jinyuan said, Sure, then I'll have to trouble Grandma to worry about me. My father knows everything that old master and my future father-in-law like. You can leave it to my father to arrange, and you can give my father some advice. With your professional guidance, I'll be more at ease. Old Madame Xia laughed heartily at home and said to Commander-in-Chief Xia, Did you hear that? 6th brother asked me to give you some advice. 6th brother is meticulous, so I'm not at ease letting you arrange these things. With your guidance, I'll be more at ease. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't directly scold his son this time. This matter indeed needed old Madame Xia to arrange. As a man, he was also afraid that there would be mistakes and it wouldn't be good if he made the arrangements. Yi Qian didn't even have a chance to refuse. No, it should be said that she couldn't pass on her refusal to old Madame Xia's ears. Her phone was raised high by Xia Jinyuan, and she couldn't reach it even if she jumped. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who wanted to please his future father-in-law and old master, didn't want to leave empty-handed on his first New Year's visit. Even if his future father-in-law didn't mind, he would feel embarrassed. She was afraid that Yi Qian would change his mind, so she said goodbye to the old madam and old master and ended the call. She then said to Yi Qian, We can leave for Dangue Garden now. Don't let the driver wait too long. Yi Qian, who had been tugging at his sleeves and saying, Don't be so troublesome, there's really no need, and so on, also chose to listen to old madam's arrangements. With her eyes slightly red, she said to Xia Jinyuan, Grandpa and Grandma are kind and generous, so we can't be rude. We'll split the 3-day break into 2. You can go to my house tonight, and I'll go home with you tomorrow afternoon. There was no need to ask for Xia Jinyuan's opinion. Yi Qian made the decision. She could still make the decision on these matters. Why are you crying? Xia Jinyuan held her slightly cold hand and used his other hand to gently wipe away the tears at the corners of her eyes. He smiled and said, If you go to my house on New Year's Eve, you can only be family Xia's daughter-in-law for the rest of your life. You can't run away again. Speaking of how she didn't seem to want to be family Xia's daughter-in-law in the past, Yi Qian, who was still holding back her tears, didn't know whether to laugh or cry after hearing what he said. The tears that she was holding back also burst out. He didn't even need to reach out to wipe them away. His warm and slender hand had already wiped them away for her. She even heard him tease, "Why didn't I realize that you like to shed your golden beans? It's such a good day, and you actually shed your golden beans. When we return to Danguay Garden later, Grandpa and Father-in-law will think that I bullied you and chased me out with a mop. You have to pull them back, understand? When did I run away? If I want to run away, I'll run to your team. I've never run anywhere else." Her eyes were watery as she glared at the guy who was making her laugh. They had known each other for so many years, but he still loved to tease her as much as he did in the past. "If my dad really wants to chase you out with a mop, I won't stop him." Chapter 33:72. If he chased him away today, he would definitely come back the next day. There was no one more thick-skinned than Captain Xia in this world. Xia Jinyuan loved to hear these words that were more like vows than vows. His smile spread to the corners of his cold eyes, like the spring breeze that lingered in the depths of his eyes. "I like it when you run to my side. When you're old and can't run anymore, I'll carry you on my back." "Why don't you say that you're old and can't run anymore? You need me to carry you. I can't bear for you to carry me. Let me carry you for the rest of your life." Looking down at the military uniform he was wearing, Xia Jinyuan said regretfully, "It's a pity that I can't carry you today. Next time I'll carry you. I haven't carried you on my back yet." Thinking back to the past, whenever he saw a man carrying his girlfriend, he would do it willingly. It was as if he was willing to do anything for him. At that time, he scoffed and even said to Han Zheng that he would never carry his girlfriend on his back again, nor would he find one. In the end, he really wanted to carry his girlfriend on his back and walk with her. He would carry her, she would lean against his back and wrap her arms around his shoulders. One would laugh happily, while the other would listen quietly. The snow beneath their feet, the towering mountains in the distance, the winding road with the street lights on both sides. He would carry her on his back and spend their time together. Just thinking about it made him happy. Yi Qian wanted to glare at him and say that he would not let him carry him. However, seeing the yearning in his eyes, he knew that he really wanted to carry him. He swallowed the words at the tip of his tongue and held his slender, strong, and exceptionally warm hand. He said softly, "There will be a chance. We still have a lifetime. I'll remember it. When the time comes, I'll definitely let you carry me." There was still a lifetime to go. There were plenty of opportunities. He was not a sentimental person, but the warmth he showed was so sweet that even the air felt sweet. Although it was night, they were on the side of the road. It was not appropriate for them to be overly affectionate in their military uniforms. After a short while, they let go of each other's hands. For a moment, both of them were very satisfied. Even after they got into the car, the two of them still secretly hooked their fingers and held hand. Then they pursed their lips and looked at each other. Usually, it was Yi Qian who looked away first. Then, his ears turned slightly red and he started to feel embarrassed again. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who had always been thick-skinned, was laughing to himself. After looking at each other for so long, his little fox was still shy. TSK, TSK, TSK. How could she be so shy? In the car from the military headquarters to Danguay Garden, the two of them were like children who kept making small movements in the dark. The smile in their eyes never disappeared. The car couldn't enter Danguay Garden. The driver could be considered half an old Beijinger. He more or less knew a little about this area. When he saw the two soldiers coming here, there was a trace of awe in his eyes. This place was not for the rich, it was for the rich. It was said that the security inside was so tight that all the armed policemen patrolling the area were not allowed to enter. For these two young soldiers to live here, they were really born with a golden spoon. The taxi driver lowered his head and leaned over the steering wheel to look outside. He smacked his lips enviously before driving away. Everyone outside knew that there were rich people living in Danguay Garden, but no one knew how expensive they were. After all, the people living here were all old scientists who had made great contributions to the country. After they were taken care of, they had to pay more attention to their safety. Each and every one of them was a moving treasure trove. Safety came first. Chapter 3373. After getting out of the car, Xia Jinyuan went to the driver, who had been waiting for more than 10 minutes, to pick up the gift. The driver opened the trunk and explained in detail every time he took out a gift, including whether it was for Old Master Fu or Chief Engineer Fu. He explained everything one by one until Yi Qian was dumbfounded. Everyone in the family, including her, got gift. Xia Jinyuan didn't think it was too much. Third uncle gave him too many gifts, such as ginseng and velvet antler. The driver counted the gifts carefully while he listened carefully. Fortunately, although there were many gifts, they were small and didn't take up much space. The driver repeated old Madam's words, which roughly meant that when her granddaughter-in-law went over, Grandma must give her a very big red packet. She also asked all the uncles and aunts to give her a big red packet. Yi Qian blushed when he heard the driver's words. After counting, the driver handed the car keys to Xia Jinyuan and prepared to help him put the gifts back into the trunk. Xia Jinyuan saw that it was getting late, so he asked the driver to leave first and he would do it himself. Dangue Garden covered a large area, and all the villas were hidden in the woods. It was impossible for them to walk home, so they had to take the car. After the driver left, Yi Qian looked at Xia Jinyuan, who was ringing the gifts until his arms were outstretched, and said, "It's too much. It's too expensive. Did old Madam empty the house?" "Not really. The car can drive directly into Dangue Garden. Grandma already restrained herself by not filling up the back seat." With the gifts in hand, Xia Jinyuan spoke with confidence. It was indeed inappropriate for him to go empty-handed. As he spoke, he put the gifts back into the trunk one by one. "It's cold. Wait for me in the car." Yi Jian took the gifts from his other hand and said, "It's already scary enough. When my father sees you later, he'll think that you're here to deliver the betrothal gift." Yi Jian took the gifts from his other hand and said, "It's scary enough. I wanted to give the betrothal gifts, but you didn't agree. Hurry up and pack them. Don't talk nonsense. You brought them up first, but you won't let me speak first? That's unreasonable." She was being unreasonable. Yi Qian snorted softly, but a happy expression appeared on his face. Old Master Fu and Father Fu did not know that Yi Qian would be back, so the two of them and Uncle Fu spent the New Year at home. They did not feel lonely at all. On the eve of the Lunar New Year, the neighbors all came over to invite the family over for dinner. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, there were even more neighbors who came to give New Year's greetings. There were also scientists from the Aviation Institute and Old Master Fu's former students. The house was very lively. Today was the third day of the Lunar New Year, which was also the old madam's birthday. Everyone knew that the old master would not receive guests on this day. After 2 lively days, the old master and Father Fu ate a bowl of vegetarian noodles and went to the chess room to play chess. The third day of the Lunar New Year passed quietly. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening. The butler, Uncle Fu, was preparing Chinese medicine for the old master to wash his feet. It was used to disperse the cold and dampness so that the old master could sleep better at night. Since it was winter, the old master's legs always hurt. Medicine was not effective, but soaking his feet in Chinese medicine could alleviate some of the pain. Even the herbs were pure wild. They were effective and long-lasting. Only then did the old master feel less pain at night. The medicine was poured into a wooden basin and covered with a thick cotton towel. Uncle Fu wiped his hands and prepared to go to the chess room to ask the old master to come out. At this moment, the doorbell rang. Ever since he moved into Dangue Garden, no guests came to give New Year's greetings on the third day of the Lunar New Year. They would not come over in the middle of the night, except when the old master had not retired and there was an emergency in the Aviation Institute that required his attention. Chapter 3374. Uncle Fu turned around and walked to the door. When he opened the door, he saw a beautiful couple standing in the warm red light of the lanterns. Uncle Fu was so happy that he was stunned. "Happy New Year, Uncle Fu." Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan smiled and said at the same time. Uncle Fu had taken care of the old master for more than 20 years and was Yi Qian's elder, so he deserved their respectful greetings. The two of them spoke at the same time, which made Uncle Fu come back to his senses. He said excitedly, "Happy New Year, Happy New Year, you two are even better." Then, he raised his voice and shouted into the house, "Senior Officer Yusheng, our little princess is back, our little princess is back. Our princess is back." Yi Qian, who was about to step into the house, almost sprained his ankle. "Princess!" Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who was quick to react, held his frightened girlfriend and said in a low voice, "She is indeed the princess, and also the little princess in my heart." After raising his voice, Uncle Fu was so excited that he couldn't speak properly. He was so happy that his eyes narrowed into slits. "Yes, she is our little princess. Senior Officer said it himself, so it can't be wrong." Uncle Fu, who was serving the old master, thought that every word he said was correct, so he followed him closely. The father and son, who were still playing chess in the chess room, suddenly heard Uncle Fu's voice. The chess piece between the old master's fingers fell onto the chessboard with a bang, hitting another chess piece. "What did you just say? Xiao Fu, what did you just say? Our little princess is back?" Old people tended to react slower, but Father Fu reacted much faster. He put the chess piece he was playing with into the box and immediately got off the tatami. He answered the old master, "Our little princess is back. Ah, she really is back. I thought I heard wrong. Quick, get out." When the old master heard this, he stood up a little too quickly. Father Fu, who had just taken off his shoes, leaned over to support the old master, who was obviously swaying. "Slow down, she is already back. Are you still afraid that she will run away?" "I'm not afraid that she will run away. The military academy is on break, but I didn't see her come back. You said that our little princess is on duty, but she should be able to make a phone call if she's on duty, but she doesn't even have a phone. Who is that teacher? Go back and find out for me. I must call him and tell him. When you're on duty in the army, you can still call home together on New Year's Eve. Why can't you do it in front of our little princess? Do you think that our little princess is shy, kind, and easy to bully?" "You have to find out which teacher it is. I have to make a phone call and tell him." Mr. Fu, who was holding on to him, did not know whether to laugh or cry when it came to the wise old man's treatment of his own granddaughter. "Dad, I haven't been home for the New Year for 3 or 4 years in a row, and I haven't called home at all. I've never heard you complain like this, and you even blame the leaders for being unreasonable. Why is it that when you're in front of Jian, you're like a child and a little unreasonable?" When the old master, who had just put on his shoes, heard this, he snorted. "Of course you are different from our little princess. A good man has aspirations to travel far. How can I restrain you? But you once said that since Jane Eyre was wearing the military uniform, she had to shoulder the responsibilities of a soldier. She had to follow orders and there was nothing special about her." Father Fu didn't argue any further. If the old master wanted to protect her, so be it. He was just being rude and unreasonable for a while. When he saw Jane Eyre, he became a wise old master again. Yi Qian already knew that the old master was playing chess with Father Fu in the chess room. She hurriedly changed her shoes and ran straight to the chess room. Chapter 3375. The door to the chess room opened, and Father Fu helped the old man out. He saw his daughter, who was as light as a little bird, running towards them. Then, Father Fu felt a force pushing his arm away. The old man, who was like a stabilizing force in the aerospace department, pushed him away. He laughed loudly and opened his arms, waiting for his little princess to come over. Father Fu. Ever since his daughter came back, the respected old man became more and more like a child. Of course, he also became more energetic. This was a good thing. Father Fu, who was pushed away, was not angry. He smiled and said, "Dad, you're old but strong. I was almost pushed down by you." The old man had a granddaughter and did not want a son anymore. He acted as if he did not hear anything. As he walked, he laughed and said, "Ioyo, whose family's little fairy is back? Why is she so beautiful and so energetic?" "Ioyo, isn't this our family's little fairy? Our family's little fairy is back to spend the new year with Grandpa, ha ha ha." Father Fu, who was a step behind and carefully paying attention to the old man, paused in his steps. Little princess one moment, little fairy the next. Did the old man not pay attention to the current affairs news, national news, military news, and only watch some TV dramas? Little princess, little fairy. Don't say it was quite nice. "Grandpa, Dad, I'm back. Happy New Year, Happy New Year." After experiencing the little princess, just now, the little fairy's voice was as clear as a silver bell. She did not pay attention to the old man. She only had the old man and Father Fu in her eyes. She had already thrown herself into the old man's arms, allowing the old man to gently hug his only granddaughter. "Ha ha ha, Happy New Year, Happy New Year." The old man looked at his granddaughter. The more he looked, the more he liked her. The more he looked, the more satisfied he was. "My little fairy is so energetic. She seems to have grown taller. Ha ha, not bad, not bad. She's becoming more and more beautiful." Naturally, the more he looked, the more satisfied he was with his own child. Other children would have to stand aside. Father Fu also felt that his daughter was becoming more and more beautiful. "You're finally back. If you didn't come back, my ears would have grown calluses." Usually, the new year was just like that. But this year, it was different. Without Yi Qian, who had finally returned home, the old master felt that something was wrong. Even when many of his favorite students came to visit on the first and second day of the new year, the old master did not show much interest. As for Father Fu, although he didn't say it out loud, how could he not hope for it in his heart? In order to take care of the old man, he could only bury the words in his heart and not express them. Now that his daughter had returned, the elegant Father Fu had a deep smile in his eyes. The happiness from the bottom of his heart made him look completely different. However, when he saw another young soldier, the smile in Father Fu's eyes faded a little. Good fellow, he came to their house on New Year's Day and came back with his daughter. The old master did not have time to care about what his son was thinking. He was very satisfied with Xia Jinyuan. The descendant of the old family Xia had a good character. Seeing that he came back with his granddaughter, the old master laughed heartily. "Good, good, good. It's best that both of you are back together. Now that both of you are back, I won't be able to sleep tonight." When a happy occasion happened, people were in high spirits. They were in good spirits, and did not feel sleepy at all. Uncle Fu, who had just finished putting away the gifts, laughed and said, "Old chief, this Major Xia even brought a lot of gifts over. The entire trunk is full. Young Master Xia probably emptied their house. He put in a lot of effort." Chapter 3376. In order to let old Master Fu know how meticulous Xia Jinyuan's gifts were, Uncle Fu wrung a few gifts for old Master Fu to see. He wrung them with both hands. Just by looking at the product names, one could tell how meticulous the gifts were. "I'm very happy that you're here. Why did you bring gift?" Old Master Fu did not like gifts, but when he heard Uncle Fu say that he had emptied their house, he could tell how much importance he attached to this family Xia visit. Xia Jinyuan replied respectfully, "This is the first time I wish you and Uncle a Happy New Year. It's just a small gift." "It's not just a small gift. Grandpa, these gifts were all prepared by Grandpa Xia, Grandma Xia, and Uncle Xia." He and I rushed back from overseas and reported to the military first. We didn't prepare any gifts for you and Dad. Look at me, I didn't bring anything back. Now that he was home with his closest family, Yi Qian suddenly lost his composure and became more childish. Yi Qian also had a soft sky under his tough exterior. Only her closest family members could get close to that place. Even Xia Jinyuan rarely had the chance to get close to that place. Lovers and family members were always different. They were unreserved towards their lovers, but they were naturally close to their family members. Father Fu could glean a lot of information from Yi Qian's words. 1. His daughter did not stay on duty at school. Instead, she went out with the young man in front of him. That was why she had to report to the military first. 2. Family Xia. This young man did not have time to go back to family Xia. He accompanied his daughter to the Fu family home first. He was quite thoughtful. He knew that Old Master Fu and Old Master Fu wanted Jane Eyre to go home. 3. Master Xia, Old Madam Xia, and Commander-in-Chief Xia approved of his visit. They did not mind the young man from their family visiting the Fu family home first. They were very sincere and Old Master Fu could not find anything to complain about. Father Fu's gaze toward Xia Jinyuan softened a little. But, as a father who wanted to keep his daughter by his side for a few more years, Father Fu still felt that the kid didn't even go home. Instead, he came to their house to give his New Year's greetings. He was simply scheming. Look, they've managed to coax the old man into sitting on the sofa with one hand each, grinning from ear to ear. Uncle Fu brewed some tea and served it. Seeing that the old man was so happy, he thought for a while and walked over to Father Fu. He reminded him softly, "Old General, the Chinese medicine for soaking your feet is ready. If we wait any longer, the water will turn cold and it won't be as effective. Why don't I bring it out and let the old chief soak it while we talk?" Father Fu was concerned about the old man's health. Hearing this, he walked out with a wooden basin. Yi Qian, who was happily chatting with the old man, smelled a strong scent of Chinese medicine. The smile on his face instantly faded. Why was there such a strong smell of Chinese medicine? Grandpa's health was not good. Was he drinking Chinese medicine? It was not a good idea to ask such questions during the new year. Yi Qian resisted the urge to ask immediately. Instead, he turned his head and saw Father Fu walking over with a medium-sized wooden basin. Yi Qian's smile blossomed again. It was such a large wooden basin. It was obvious that it was used to soak feet. She knew that the old man had rheumatism in his feet and needed to recuperate. Soaking his feet in Chinese medicine was a good idea. She quickly got up and took the wooden basin from Father Fu. Father Fu did not refuse. His daughter was filial and knew that she was going home to fulfill her filial duties. There was no need for him to refuse. He smiled and reminded her, "It's a little heavy. Be careful." It was indeed a little heavy, but not for Yi Qian. He smiled and took it easily. "It's much lighter than carrying a log." Chapter 3377. She originally wanted to say it lightly so that Father Fu would not worry, but she did not expect that when she said it, Father Fu's heart would ache. Even the male soldiers could not bear to carry the logs, but his daughter easily said it out loud. How much pain did she have to endure? Xia Jinyuan, who had been quietly observing, retracted his gaze. Just now, he was also shocked and thought that the old man was unwell. After seeing the wooden basin, he and Yi Qian quietly sighed in relief. The old man took in the subtle changes in their expressions. He gently patted the back of Xia Jinyuan's hand and said with a smile, "Grandfather is fine, it's fine. Use this medicine to soak your feet and you'll sleep better at night." She continued, "It's all thanks to your father. He had his soldiers search for wild Chinese medicine in the area around his home. They dried it, cut it, and sent it to the capital. This wild Chinese medicine is much more effective than the cultivated medicine. The effect is much better. When he heard that Commander-in-Chief Xia would also help, Xia Jinyuan decided to go back and give his father a big hug. He wanted to thank him for his help and make the old man so satisfied. As long as the old man was satisfied, his position as the grandson-in-law would be more stable. As for his future father-in-law, all fathers-in-law in the world would be equally difficult to deal with. There was no other way. After all, he was going to marry his father-in-law's sweet little jacket in the future. He was reluctant to part with it, so it was understandable that he did not like his son-in-law. Therefore, in order to make his father-in-law more satisfied with his son-in-law, he had to continue working hard. Don't mention it. My father has several soldiers who have retired from the army. Their families are all from the mountains. I heard from my father that they are not used to the arranged jobs when they go back, so a few soldiers from nearby started their own business. They specialize in pure wild Chinese herbs. Don't worry and use it. Once you're done, I'll ask my father to arrange it for you. In order to please the old man, Comrade Xia did not hesitate to mention Commander-in-Chief Xia. There were indeed such things, but Commander-in-Chief Xia usually did not look for his soldiers because he was afraid that they would feel uncomfortable. For the sake of the old man's health and to make the two young people's journey home easier, Commander-in-Chief Xia was just like any other parent in the world. He was willing to help his children. When the old man heard this, his interest was piqued. That's a good thing. Now that the country's military is getting stronger and stronger, we will need more and more people to join the army in the future. After joining the army, they will be out of touch with society for a few years. After they leave the army, they will not be able to adapt in all aspects. It is indeed a good idea to let the veterans start their own business, but it still needs the support of all parties. Bring it up when you go back and bring them to me. I'll introduce them to a few people and let them expand their business. This will make the veterans who start their own businesses more confident. Let them have more choices and more chances of success. This way, even if they retire, the industries they create will still contribute to the growth of the country's strength. What the old man meant by pay was the taxes of a business. Although he had been retired for so many years, the old man's mind was still focused on the country's affairs. He always paid attention to them and did his best. In this world, there would always be people who would selflessly contribute their entire lives. They didn't need to be surrounded by the limelight. They didn't even like to be exposed. They just wanted to contribute silently and work hard for their motherland. The old man and the old lady who had passed away belonged to the category of selfless scientists. Their names would not be widely spread, but they would definitely be recorded in the annals of history and be remembered forever. Chapter 3378. Xia Jinyuan listened attentively. When the old man finished speaking, he said solemnly, "It is indeed a good idea to support the veterans to start their own businesses. I will definitely pass on your words. Not everyone would succeed, but at least it would give the veterans who had difficulty finding a job another choice." The wooden basin was placed at the old man's feet. Yi Qian did not get up immediately. Instead, he rolled up the old man's trousers and carefully served him. Xia Jinyuan would not let Yi Qian serve him alone. He squatted down at the same time, and before the old man could stop him, he was already squatting down nimbly. At home, Grandpa and Grandma also like to soak their feet in Chinese medicine. Do you think my skills are good enough? The two of them squatted down together. Father Fu, who was standing, smiled wider. He looked at Xia Jinyuan with a hint of approval in his eyes. Not bad, I didn't expect family Xia to be so filial. The old man did not let Xia Jinyuan serve him. He bent down and grabbed Xia Jinyuan's arm. He said kindly, "You are our guest. You don't have to do this. Let our little princess do it." Although he was the future grandson-in-law, he could not let him enter the house to serve others. It was good enough that he had the intention. Yi Qian stopped Xia Jinyuan's outstretched hand. You chat with my grandfather and Dad. I'll do it. Father Fu said, Dad, sit down. Let Jane Eyre serve you. He then said to Xia Jinyuan, It's good that you have the intention. Get up quickly. He had the intention and the ability to act. It was obvious that he was not a person who only knew how to talk. Father Fu, who was originally satisfied with Xia Jinyuan, added a few more points for his future son-in-law. Xia Jinyuan smiled. He understood the old man's intentions and did not insist. He got up and started talking to Old Master Fu and Father Fu. Yi Qian carefully rolled up the old man's trousers and lifted the towel covering the wooden basin. He reached out to test the temperature of the water. It was a little hot, but it needed to be at this temperature. With his granddaughter taking care of him, the old man was overjoyed. Xia Jinyuan lowered his gaze and watched as his girlfriend carefully took care of the old man. She had a gentle smile on her face, and her gaze was so gentle that it could melt into water. Gentle, considerate, filial, smart, capable, and capable. How could he be so lucky to find her? That night, the family chatted until 11 p.m. before going to bed. The old man was actually still in good spirits, but when they were chatting, Xia Jinyuan mentioned that he and Yi Qian had gone to Guangdong province. The old man seemed to have thought of something. After chatting for a while, he said that he was tired and that they should go to bed early and continue tomorrow morning. Father Fu helped the old man go back to his room to rest. When he came out, he saw the two young people sitting on the sofa. They were still in good spirits and did not look tired at all. Especially his daughter, who looked so energetic that her little face was glowing. Aren't you sleepy after working so hard for so many days? Father Fu walked over and smiled lovingly. Is there anything else you want to talk to me about? Yi Jian shifted her seat so that she was sitting next to Father Fu. She then held Father Fu's arm and said softly, Father, I'm going to pay Grandpa Xia, Grandma Xia, and Uncle Xia a visit. Of course you have to visit them. You brought him home, so you have to send him back. Father Fu already knew what his daughter wanted to say before Yi Qian finished her sentence. It was the new year, and Master Xia and old Madame Xia thought so highly of the fact that they brought family Xia back. The Fu family could not be rude and had to visit them to visit. Chapter 3379. As the saying goes, a grown girl can't be kept at home. After breakfast tomorrow morning, I'll get the driver to send you both over. I'll represent our family to wish Old Master and Old Madam a Happy New Year. I won't be going with you. Your grandfather's student will be coming over tomorrow, so I have to stay to entertain the guests. You can go to family Xia with him. As he spoke, Father Fu asked, Will you be coming home tomorrow night? Tomorrow night. Yi Qian wanted to come home, but he was afraid that she wouldn't be able to. Xia Jinyuan readily answered Father Fu, I'll send Jane Eyre home tomorrow night, but it might be a little late. There were many relatives at home, and knowing that he would be bringing his girlfriend home, he was afraid that they would stay until tomorrow. Father Fu nodded. Okay, but there's no need to come back if it's too late. We'll see how it goes tomorrow. Family Xia, this kid is too good. I can't find any fault with him at all. Father Fu deeply regretted this. Thus, the future father-in-law and future son-in-law had a brief exchange of glances. One glared daggers at him, while the other was gentle and refined. Both of them were calm and respectful. The future father-in-law smiled and nodded, indicating that he would let him off for today. Xia Jinyuan, who had received the signal, wanted to bow to his future father-in-law and ask him to be merciful. Yi Jian did not notice the twists and turns in the conversation. She also did not know that her smart father had set a trap for her boyfriend without batting an eyelid. If Xia Jinyuan didn't answer after Father Fu finished speaking, or if he said, maybe she won't come back, Father Fu would make a note of it. How would he make a note of it? He would make a note of it like this. You brat, you haven't even married my daughter yet, but you can't wait to keep my daughter in your house, and not let her come back. Just wait and see. I don't believe that my daughter won't listen to me. I'll let you suffer for a few more years. If he really made a note of it, not only would Colonel Xia have a long road to pursuing his wife, but he would also have a long road to marrying her. Xia Jinyuan felt a lot of pressure when faced with such a smart father-in-law. He had to constantly be on guard against the traps set by his future father-in-law. If he wasn't careful, he would fall into a trap, which was much more stressful than his father. Looking at his girlfriend's sweet smile and contented and blissful appearance, Lieutenant Colonel Xia's lips curled up deeply. Such a beautiful and filial daughter was suddenly abducted by a man one day. If it were him, he would also feel stifled. Thinking about it, he could understand why his future father-in-law wanted to make things difficult for his future son-in-law. If he and the little fox gave birth to a beautiful and adorable daughter, the little princess in his hands, the little fairy was about to be snatched away by a stinky brat. Just wait and see. Therefore, Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who didn't have a daughter yet and had yet to settle his future father-in-law, was already starting to think about how he, as a father, would compete with his future son-in-law. After thinking about it, Yi Qian advised Father Fu to go back to his room and rest early. Dad, you go back to your room and sleep first. We'll talk tomorrow. I still have a lot to tell you. When Father Fu heard that his daughter still had a lot to tell him, even if he was smiling gently, wrinkles appeared at the corners of his eyes. You guys should rest early too. Your Uncle Fu has just tidied up the room. He must be tired after running around for a few days. Sleep early and rest well before we go to pay New Year's greetings tomorrow. His daughter was so beautiful. When she put on her military uniform tomorrow, everyone in the family Xia would adore her. Nowadays, soldiers were not prohibited from wearing their military uniforms outside. They could wear it on normal occasions, and it was not against military discipline. Yi Qian nodded heavily. She should rest early and rest well. And tomorrow night, she would go home at night and Captain Xia would go home too. That would be the best of both worlds. Chapter 3380. However, she still had to talk to Xia Jinyuan. Both Grandpa Xia and Grandma Xia wanted her to go to family Xia. If she really came back tomorrow night, she didn't know if the two elders would. Would they be disappointed? She didn't want to disappoint the two elders. What should she do then? She couldn't solve this kind of problem. She had to talk to Captain Xia. She would first persuade her father to go back to his room to rest, and then discuss it with Captain Xia. Father Fu didn't say much. He smiled and rubbed his daughter's head. Rest early. I'm going back to my room to sleep. His silly daughter. She was so worried about whether or not she could go home tomorrow. Wouldn't it be better to leave this matter to the Xia family's son? What was she thinking about? Father Fu didn't remind Yi Qian. This was a matter between the two young people. They needed to understand and coordinate with each other in their careers, and it was the same for their families. Father Fu went back to his room. Yi Jian and Xia Jinyuan also went back to their own rooms. After washing up in her room, Yi Jian put on her warm pink pajamas. Her skin was steamed to the point that it looked like an eggshell that had just been peeled off. She walked out of her room and knocked on the door next door very softly. In order to take care of the old man, Father Fu and the others slept downstairs. There were only two people upstairs. Even so, when Yi Qian knocked on the door, her voice was so soft that Xia Jinyuan almost didn't hear it. Fortunately, there was a Special Forces soldier sleeping in the room. He was lying on the bed with a smile on his handsome face. Who knew what he was thinking about? Suddenly, he heard a soft sound like a mouse gnawing on wood. He jumped out of bed and rushed to the door to open it softly. As soon as he opened the door a crack, Yi Qian whispered like a thief, "Captain Xia, it's me." Of course, he knew it was her. He even did something he was thinking of doing just now. He ran to the room next door to find his girlfriend and use the blanket to chat. He didn't expect that the usually shy girl would beat him to it. When the door opened, Yi Qian sneaked into the room like a thief. When the door closed, she took a deep breath and patted her chest. "You scared me to death, scared me to death. What do you have at home? So scary?" Before Xia Jinyuan could finish, his guilty girlfriend said in a low voice, "Oh no, I didn't close the door just now. I have to go and check." It was precisely because they were at home and the elders were sleeping downstairs that Yi Jian felt guilty and nervous. It was as if she had done something wrong. When Xia Jinyuan saw this, he wanted to laugh, but he had to hold it in. Otherwise, he would be beaten up. He hurriedly held her shoulders and said, "I'll go take a look. You take a breather." From her room to his room, there were only 5 steps. 1 step from her door, 3 steps to his door, and 1 step into his room. It was only 5 steps, but she was so nervous, Yi Qian was more than nervous. He waved his hand and gestured for Xia Jinyuan to go take a look. Compared to Yi Qian's nervousness, Captain Xia was much calmer. He opened the door and walked to Yi Qian's room to check if the door was closed. Then, a figure appeared in front of him and looked straight at him with a very serious gaze. That was the real problem. Looking at his future father-in-law, Xia Jinyuan pretended that he had just walked out of Yi Qian's room and pretended to close the door. Then he said to his future father-in-law, "Uncle Fu, why aren't you asleep yet? Are you looking for Jane Eyre? She just fell asleep." If she had fallen asleep, she wouldn't have gone to Yi Qian's room to hide the fact that Yi Qian was in his room at that moment. Father Fu replied coldly in his heart, "Rascal, I was about to fall asleep just now. I didn't know he came out of his daughter's room in the middle of the night." Chapter 3381. Instead of sleeping, he went to his daughter's room in the middle of the night. Father Fu looked at Xia Jinyuan from head to toe with a sharp gaze. He wanted to see if the fellow he had caught coming out of his daughter's room was up to something else. At this moment, Xia Jinyuan, who was always calm, was secretly glad. He was glad that Yi Qian had said that she had forgotten to close the door. Otherwise, if Father Fu came knocking and found that Yi Qian was not around, Xia Jinyuan would be worried. Father Fu, who still had a slight smile on his face, had finished looking at Xia Jinyuan. Seeing that he was dressed neatly and without any mess, he felt slightly better. Judging from the time they took to go upstairs, the two of them did not have much time. He was also wearing the slippers in the bedroom, so it was obvious that he had taken a shower before going to find his daughter. Judging from the time, it would take at most a goodnight kiss. Seeing that there was still a small gap in the door next door, Father Fu's tightly pressed lips slowly relaxed. He could understand that there was a little intimacy between young couples. Understanding was one thing, but in his heart, he was going to make a mental note of it. How dare he play tricks in their house? "Good fellow, aren't you a little too bold?" Xia Jinyuan walked over calmly. He felt guilty that he had not been caught. He was very calm and did not look like he had done anything wrong. The truth was, he did not do anything wrong. Father Fu looked at the young man who had questioned him as he walked closer. The corners of his mouth moved slightly. "There will be a lot of guests at home tomorrow morning. You two should get up early and visit old Master Fu and Grandma Fu early." To think that he had given the rascal some points just now. He regretted it. What points? 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 They were all in the negative now. Yi Qian's return to the Fu family was not made public. It was still a secret. When there were many guests tomorrow morning, and they saw that there was suddenly a beautiful couple in old Master Fu's house, they might not think too much about the fact that Yi Qian was old Master Fu's granddaughter, but they would at least ask about it. Since there was no need for too many people to know about this secret, it was better to avoid it. Xia Jinyuan noticed that his future father-in-law's expression was a little cold, but he did not intend to look for Yi Qian in the room. Frightened, he calmed himself down and replied calmly, "Okay, Uncle Fu. What time does the old gentleman usually get up? Let's go back to the family xia after we're done with breakfast. You can get up at 7 and leave at 8. Mr. Fu finished the words in one breath and pointed at the room next door. "Go back to your room and rest early." After he finished speaking, he did not leave and supervise the rascal who had barged into his daughter's room. Xia Jinyuan was stunned by Father Fu's serious expression. Seeing that Father Fu would not leave until he saw him back to his room, Xia Jinyuan bowed politely and said, "Good night." Then he went back to his room. Inside the room, Yi Qian could hear everything clearly because the door was not closed tightly. When she heard Father Fu's voice, her first reaction was to run to the window and push it open. She was about to climb out of the window to get back to her room. Her long and slender legs stepped onto the windowsill and slowly lowered. It was useless to push open the window here. The window in her room was tightly shut. Even if she climbed out, she would not be able to get back to her room. Yi Qian, who was afraid that Father Fu would check on her, was so nervous that cold sweat broke out on her back. She held her breath in the room. Yi Qian, who was sweating profusely, tiptoed behind the door and listened carefully. When she heard Father Fu say, "Go back to your room and rest early," her heart was in her throat. She was afraid that Father Fu would ask Xia Jinyuan to go back to his room to rest while he went to her room himself. Chapter 3382. When he realized that his daughter wasn't in the room, the scene. Yi Qian clawed at the wall, so nervous that he almost tore the wallpaper. He even held his breath, not daring to breathe. He was afraid that Father Fu would knock on the door, so he could only hope that Xia Jinyuan would hold Father Fu back. When he heard the familiar footsteps approaching, Yi Qian held his breath and waited for Xia Jinyuan to return to the room safely. Xia Jinyuan pushed the door open, closed it, and locked it from the inside. Father Fu didn't leave immediately even though he heard the click of the lock from outside. When he saw that Xia Jinyuan had returned to the room and locked the door, Father Fu turned around and went downstairs. Father Fu turned around, and the faint smile on his face disappeared. He walked down the stairs expressionlessly. In the future, he would never let that family Xia kid stay over at home again. Never. Who knew if he would sneak into his daughter's room again? Sneaking into his daughter's room in the middle of the night? Ha! Does he want to marry his daughter as soon as possible? No way. He had just acknowledged his daughter, so he had to keep her for a few more years. Tomorrow, he had to have a good chat with his daughter. She wasn't in a hurry to get married. She had to stay at home and be a little princess and fairy for a few more years. After she got married, sigh. Father Fu got more jealous the more he thought about it. His little princess and fairy had been cheated away by that brat. Father Fu's heart was still filled with jealousy when they returned to the room. In the room, Xia Jinyuan saw that his girlfriend behind the door was so nervous that the tip of her nose was sweating. He couldn't help but laugh. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Qian covered his mouth and stared at him with his clear eyes, warning him not to speak. She had just taken a shower, so there was a faint fragrance on her body. As he held her hand, his nose was filled with her sweet and soft scent. He lowered his gaze slightly and saw that her face was like a hibiscus due to the heat. She was so delicate that she looked like a dewy flower, exuding a faint fragrance that could make one's heart sway. He couldn't help but pick her up. Instantly, Xia Jinyuan, who had been holding back his words, looked a little gloomy. After a while, Yi Qian said weakly, "My dad left." He was so nervous that he was about to faint. Xia Jinyuan grabbed his girlfriend's soft waist and pulled her into his arms. He let Yi Qian, who was so guilty that he couldn't even stand properly, lean into his embrace. He smiled and sighed. "You don't have to be so nervous. Even if my father-in-law really wants to make things difficult for you, he wouldn't bear to make things difficult for you. He would only think that a bad guy like me seduced his daughter, and caused her to suffer. Yi Qian's legs were so weak that she had to lean into his embrace to support herself. Even her voice was trembling as she replied, "My dad can't bear to make things difficult for me, but I can't bear to make him angry either." "Little fool, Dad won't be angry. He just can't bear to see such a beautiful and kind daughter being taken away by a wolf so early. Go to bed and rest for a while. Look at you, you're so scared that you're sweating all over. Don't be nervous. If something really happens, I'll take care of it. Moreover, both our families know about our relationship, so there's no need to be afraid. We didn't do anything bad." Fortunately, they didn't do anything bad. If they did, she would lose sleep tonight. Yi Qian lifted her head from his embrace and said with lingering fear, "If I had known, I wouldn't have come. It won't be too late to tell you tomorrow." "Ha ha, since you're here now, tell me what you have to say." Xia Jinyuan, who was secretly happy, wrapped his arms around Yi Qian's slender waist. He looked at her gently and said, "It must be something urgent. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come." Yi Jian, who had caught her breath, nodded her head. She wanted to get out of his arms and talk to him. However, as soon as she moved, Xia Jinyuan suddenly picked her up and lifted her up. She could clearly feel that her chest had rubbed against his chin. Chapter 3383. Yi Qian reacted quickly and placed his hands on Xia Jingran's shoulders. He was already very close to Xia Jingran so that she could feel more comfortable. "Go lie down on the bed and talk," he said. Yi Qian quickly shook his head. "No, let's sit down and talk." If they really lay down on the bed, who knew what would happen? In the past, he liked to do something to her. Thinking about the few times they had laid down on the bed together, even if it was just a few times, Yi Qian felt that there was something wrong with it. Xia Jingran was well aware of what it was. But this time, he really wouldn't do anything rash. What if his smart future father-in-law came back? Xia Jinyuan thought about how his future father-in-law couldn't smile when he was outside, but he still squeezed out a faint smile. What if his future father-in-law came back and found out that he was bullying the little princess of the Fu family? It would be impossible for him to bring the little princess back to the family Xia tomorrow. For the sake of tomorrow, for the sake of a long time, and for the sake of coaxing his father-in-law, Xia Jinyuan really just wanted to sleep with his girlfriend tonight and chat. What a simple thought. Unfortunately, Yi Qian didn't believe him. Xia Jinyuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I really won't. This is your house, not outside. How would I dare? There's nothing you don't dare to do. Also, my father isn't an ordinary person. You have to be careful that he comes back to check on you. Who asked him to catch you just now?" That's right. A daughter knew her father best. Father Fu, who was still lying on the bed downstairs, suddenly lifted the blanket and took off his shoes. He was afraid that he would disturb old Master Fu, so he deliberately walked softly back to the second floor. This time, Father Fu didn't knock on Yi Qian's door. Instead, he knocked on the door of the brat's room that he was especially worried about. "Knock knock, knock knock." Yi Qian, who refused to lie on the bed and chat with him, heard the knock on the door. He jumped out of Xia Jinyuan's arms as if he was struck by lightning. His speed was amazing. Yi Qian's dark eyes widened as he jumped out. The expression on his little face was indescribable. Xia Jinyuan, whose arms were suddenly empty, was speechless. As expected, his future father-in-law turned around and attacked him. Xia Jinyuan looked at the quilt, which was so neat that there was not a single wrinkle on it. For the second time tonight, he secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, he didn't carry the little fox to the bed. Fortunately, he didn't touch the bedding. Fortunately, the little fox knew that her future father-in-law's skills were superior. Fortunately, she was cautious enough. Fortunately, tonight was safe and sound. Xia Jinyuan heaved a sigh of relief when his future father-in-law came to check on him. Yi Qian took a deep breath, then another deep breath, and another deep breath. His voice trembled as he said, "I'll go. You stand there." At this moment, it was best for her to open the door. She was so scared that she almost had a heart attack. As she walked, she adjusted her breathing and opened the door. Then, she asked in surprise, "Dad, you are looking for Captain Xia?" When the door opened, his daughter's little face appeared. Father Fu was shocked. Why was his daughter the one who ran into the little brat's room first? At that time, Father Fu's mood was as if his whole body was soaked in a huge vat full of flavors. That mood sigh. "Why aren't you asleep?" Father Fu was as gentle as a spring breeze when facing his daughter. He asked kindly, "Is there anything else at night? We're all home. If it's not something urgent in the army, it's not too late to talk about it tomorrow. I vaguely heard you talking to Captain Xia just now. I was afraid something might have happened, so I came over to ask Captain Xia." Yi Qian maintained his normal tone and said indifferently, "Tomorrow, he and I will wake up early and go to family Xia around 8. So he came over to ask about something." Chapter 3384. "Oh, by the way, there will be a lot of guests at home tomorrow. You can go to family vacation with him earlier." Father Fu turned sideways. "Go back to your room and rest. I still have a few questions to ask him." Xia Jinyuan also walked over and stood beside Yi Qian. He smiled and said, "I was a little too loud just now and woke her up." The bed was a little wrinkled, but it was still very neat. "I still have to go in and take a look," Father Fu thought to himself. Father Fu was worried sick about his little darling not being taken advantage of. Just like before, he watched Yi Qian go back to his room. Then, Father Fu walked into the guest room and glanced at the bed. Yes, it was very neat. He turned around and said, "Go back tomorrow and ask Commander-in-Chief Xia about the progress of the case involving Jane Eyre and I. I haven't been in contact with your father for a long time, so I'm not sure about the progress of the case. I can't say anything in front of the old master, so I can only talk to you in private. Don't worry, I'll understand the details from my father tomorrow and report back to you. Okay, rest early." Father Fu didn't have anything else to say, so he nodded and turned around to leave. He walked to the door and stopped. "If it's really too late tomorrow night, I'll come and pick up Jane Eyre. You should spend time with your family." He was worried, too worried. How could he dare to let his little princess and little fairy stay over for family vacation? He was too worried. Without waiting for Xia Jinyuan to reply, Father Fu closed the door and left. He didn't give the little brat who made his heart bubble with jealousy a chance to speak. At 5 o'clock the next day, Yi Jian, whose biological clock was set, did not get up immediately. The old man would only get up at around 5:30. She stayed in bed until 5:30. After washing up, she knocked on the door next door, but heard the old man's laughter coming from downstairs. Yi Qian didn't even need to knock on the door, and went straight downstairs. Downstairs, Xia Jinyuan had been chatting with the old man for nearly half an hour. His humorous and mature words made the old man laugh non-stop. He looked at Xia Jinyuan with affection, as if he was looking at his own grandson. This grandson-in-law was not bad. Yuxing said that he still needed to wait and see. There were many young and outstanding grandchildren in Dangue Garden who were still single, so there was no need to settle down immediately. In addition, they had just reunited with their family's little princess and little fairy, so they should stay for a few more years and observe their family Xia while they were at it. What old Six said was not wrong. However, it was better for the elders to not interfere in their affairs and let nature take its course. The old man who had gone through all kinds of hardships had an open mind and a pair of wise eyes to look at everything. When it came to people, he did not differentiate them based on their background. He was truly as calm and steady as a mountain. With Xia Jinyuan around, the Fu family had a real reunion dinner this morning. Father Fu, who had been preparing breakfast in the kitchen for the second half of the night, made a sumptuous feast. At the dining table, the old man, who was in a good mood, had a small glass of red wine. At 8 o'clock, Xia Jinyuan drove home with Yi Qian and promised the old man that he would send the little princess and little fairy of the Fu family home tonight. Then, the old man's laughter rang out again. As for Father Fu sent him off with a smile. Only when they came back would they truly come back. What he said now didn't count. As for Family Xia was very lively. Xia Jinyuan had no choice but to call Family Xia at 5 o'clock in the morning and say that he would leave Dangue Garden at around 8 o'clock to bring his girlfriend home to pay a New Year's visit to the elders. The phone call caused the Xia family to explode. The relatives who came to visit the old mansion only had one thought: they could finally meet old Six's mysterious girlfriend. Chapter 3385. Early in the morning, even before the sun had risen, the family Xia mansion was already bustling with noise and excitement. The family Xia mansion, which was usually unoccupied, was lit up. Everyone was preparing to welcome their future family Xia granddaughter-in-law. Old Madam, whose eyebrows were full of smiles, said to Old Master Xing, "Old Fifth didn't bring back a girlfriend for the two of us, which made us happy. Now that we have Old Sixth, Ioyo, my cheeks are sore from laughing, but my heart is happy." Among her grandchildren, Old Madam favored Xia Jinyuan, who didn't have a mother to dote on him since he was young. Now that she was too lazy to worry about her son, she focused all her attention on Xia Jinyuan. Old Master Xia took a sip of the nourishing tea and sat on the Kong bed with a smile. "You've been waiting for this moment. You've been laughing from 5 to 6. You've been laughing for an hour without stopping. How can your cheeks not be sore?" Back then, when she found out that her most beloved grandson had found a girlfriend and that the girl was so good that even her granddaughter, Yi Wei, praised her and said that Sixth Brother had his eyes set on the girl and had been waiting for her for several years, Old Madam was so happy that she looked forward to meeting her granddaughter-in-law. Later, she found out that the girl was still young at that time, and Sixth Brother didn't dare to make a move. When the girl entered high school, Sixth Brother, this naughty guy, began to make a move. Later on, the girl was just a short time away from graduating from high school, but they already confirmed their relationship. His granddaughter, Yi Wei, was the one who vaguely told her family about these things. Later, Xin Hui, Commander-in-Chief Xia, came back and said that he had seen the girl. Although she was young, she was calm and sincere. He was very satisfied with her. After Old Madam heard this, not only did she not feel relieved, she became worried. Thinking about how his wife would nag from time to time, Old Master Xia still found it funny. At that time, when you heard Xian say that his wife was indeed good, your face changed color. As he spoke, the old man burst into laughter. Old Madam also remembered what he had been nagging at that time and couldn't help but laugh. "How can I not be worried? Xin Hui doesn't even have good taste when choosing women. When he came back, he told me that old Six's girlfriend was not bad. At that time, my heart instantly sank. Don't tell me that our son and I have the same taste. Both of us are not very good. Tell me, how can I not worry? Ioyo, luckily I'm tight-lipped and don't meddle in the affairs of the younger generation. Otherwise, old man, whatever I said to you in private, you'd better keep it to yourself. You're not allowed to say it out loud, do you hear me? When I was your father, he married a daughter-in-law who couldn't take care of the family. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. Now, with his judgment, he says that the girl that Sixth Brother chose is not bad. How can I be at ease? I can't rest assured. Previously, I didn't look forward to meeting my future granddaughter-in-law. But when I came back and mentioned it, I looked forward to meeting her as soon as possible. If it doesn't happen, I can't let Sixth Brother make the same mistake as his father. No matter what, I have to be strong for once and stop Sixth Brother from bringing her into the family. When it came to important matters, the silver-haired old madam's expression became serious. She suddenly had the aura of a minister in the past. She placed her hands on the short table that was placed on top of the tea. Don't say a single word about it. Old man, remember this. Old Master Xia, who was also in a good mood, sipped the hot tea and listened to the music of the capital. He replied unhurriedly, I won't say a single word about what you said. My granddaughter-in-law is not bad. She's a descendant of the Fu family. That's amazing. At this time, the family can't be a burden. Chapter 3386. Master Xia would never do such a stupid thing as pushing his granddaughter-in-law to someone else. Old Madam was relieved. Then, he started to chat with the old man. Lao Wu, that guy, is blinded by business. Today, he changed girlfriends and tomorrow, he will change girlfriends again. I heard from Jin that Lao Wu has a relationship with a celebrity in Harbor City. Just thinking about it makes my head hurt. When Jiazi said he wanted to do business, I stopped him. You said that he's grown up and can't be controlled by his mother, so I didn't stop him and didn't follow in his brother's footsteps. Now, he has raised a grandson that I have to worry about. Tell me, back then, my son made me tremble in fear. I was afraid that he would cause trouble. Now, my son's grandson still makes me worry. When sixth brother comes back, I'll get him to talk to fifth brother and persuade him to calm down. Jiazi, also known as Xia Jiazi, was old madam's second son. Because he was the second son, it was more difficult when she was pregnant. Coincidentally, he was not at the right age. Xia Jiazi almost did not survive when he was born. Later, when he finally recovered, his health was not very good. Therefore, old madam spoiled him more than her three sons. It was only after her youngest daughter, Xia Sujuan, was born that things improved slightly. Xia Jiazi was a businessman and his business was extraordinarily big. He had properties both at home and abroad. Now, he was involved in all kinds of industries. His son was a few years older than Xia Jinyuan. Xia Yunin, who was the fifth in the family, loved to do business like his father. He also didn't follow the path of his older brothers. When he was still in high school, he was already doing business with Xia Jiazi everywhere. He was only 29 years old this year, and was also a famous eligible bachelor in the capital. He was a bachelor in the capital, Harbor City, and the Bay. He was handsome, rich, and elegant. He didn't have the shrewdness of a businessman and was elegant. How could he not be attractive? It was precisely because he was too attractive that old madam was worried. Fortunately, Xia Yunin was a womanizer. As long as he returned to the capital, he didn't have any women by his side. He went home clean to accompany old Master Xia and old Madam Xia. The two elders talked about their son and grandson and quietly waited for the granddaughter-in-law they were particularly satisfied with to come over. Outside, the younger generation all sat together. It was so lively that they needed to sit at two tables. It was rare that everyone was present this year. For example, Xia Lingxiao's family of three, who was the eldest, and Xia Yiting's family of three, followed their mother and father, who was old Master Xia's eldest son, National Defense Minister Xianghua, back to the old house. Second uncle Xia Anbang's wife and eldest daughter Xia Yiwei's family of four, and eldest son Xia Yuzhing's family of three also returned to the old mansion for the new year. Xia Yuzhing was the fourth in the family, so Xia Jinyuan had to call him fourth brother. Commander-in-Chief Xia was a little lonely. He was all alone, but he was carrying a child in each hand. They were all great-grandchildren. Her youngest uncle, Xia Jiazi, flew abroad every day. This year, he was angered by his second son, Xia Yunin, who was ranked fifth in the family. When he found out that his second son had returned to the old mansion, he immediately put aside a big business deal and rushed back. But when he saw his third eldest son, Xia Yui's family of three, He was so happy that he only cared about holding his grandson. How could he have time to care about his shameless son? Aunt Xia Sujuan and her husband returned home on the second day of the new year. Her son, Zhou Chen, and daughter, Zhou Jin, gathered at the old mansion. When they found out that her nephew, Old Sixth, was bringing his girlfriend back, they were so happy that they said to her husband, "Don't be. When the time comes, Old Sixth will get married earlier than Old Fifth. Little brother will have a lot to worry about." Chapter 3387. Ho Zi, who was carrying a baby, said to Xia Wei, who was also carrying a baby in her arms, "Sixth brother and his wife came back just in time. Our son and daughter can finally return to our arms." Xia Wei gave birth to twins and became the mascot of family Xia. Everyone wanted to carry them, but there were many people in the family. Even if they wanted to carry the twins, they had to line up. The family of 4 came back from the southern province for the new year, and the twins could only be carried by their parents at night when they went to bed. It was obvious how much family Xia loved them. As for Ho Zi, he loved his daughter to the point of obsession. He could let anyone carry his son, but as for his daughter, he couldn't wait to carry her 24/7. It was fine if he didn't carry his son when he returned to the family home, but he didn't even get to carry his daughter. Ho Zi felt bitter. Fortunately, it was finally over. It was no wonder that family Xia loved to carry their daughters. The main reason was that family Xia's daughters were too precious. Only Xia Yiwei gave birth to a daughter, and the rest of her family were all sons. Ever since the elders found out that Xia Yiwei was pregnant with twins, they had secretly wished for a daughter. Later, Xia Yiwei went into labor and gave birth to a son first. The elders who had been guarding the letter all this time were worried that the second child would be a boy. When the nurse reported the good news and said that she had given birth to a daughter, the elders couldn't wait to fly to Nan province to see the only daughter of their grandchildren. The Xia family didn't care about the boys. The Xia family's daughter was the real golden child. Even the grandmother was so happy when she hugged her granddaughter that the nurse kept looking at her. Xia Yiwei carried her son and glanced at her husband. She said to her son, "Your father has suffered these few days. Let's ignore him. It's fine if my son ignores me. I don't rely on him to support me. My wife and daughter care about me. That's enough." Ho Zi disdainfully glanced at his son. Before he could retract his gaze, his wife, Xia Yiwei, glared daggers at him. Instantly Ho Zi, who was quite arrogant in front of his son, smiled and said, "You have to care about your son too. You have to care about your son too." Xia Yiwei rolled her eyes at him. She didn't know what was wrong with him. He clearly loved his son very much, but his words and actions were full of disdain. Those who didn't know better would think that his son wasn't his biological son. Although the fifth brother, Xia Yunin, wasn't married, it didn't prevent him from holding a 3 or 4-year-old child in his arms. This child was the third brother, Xia Yui's son. He was born with delicate features and had inherited his parents' excellent genes. Xia Yunin held him as if he was holding his own son, his face full of kindness. After teasing his nephew, he said to Xia Yiwei, "Sis, when sixth brother comes back, he will receive so many red packets that his hands will go numb. When I went to see my father, my mother prepared a stack of US$. My father said that it was too shabby. He also said that sixth brother likes to do surprise attacks, so he wasn't prepared." As an elder who casually gave a set to his future niece-in-law, Uncle Xia Jiazi was never stingy with his family. Money and a house were nothing to him. He just needed to say a word. Uncle and Auntie prepared US$, and my mother prepared a set of jade jewelry. Just now, she was whispering to me that she had a few sets of jade jewelry in the old mansion. Otherwise, she would have embarrassed herself in front of my niece-in-law today. Xia Yunin gasped. Any piece of jade in second aunt's hands was worth a lot of money. Now that she took out a set, Xia Yunin asked softly. A 4-piece set or a 5-piece set? Xia Yiwei, who was holding a piece of rice cake to tease her son, didn't even look up. She smiled and said, "It's the new year. Of course, it has to be an auspicious number. Our Daodu's grandmother prepared a 6-piece set for 6th aunt." Chapter 3388. Xia Yunin clutched his chest and asked, "Sis, do you think it's too late for me to go out and grab a girlfriend?" "It's too late. You're already much later than 6th brother." Xia Yiwei finally looked up and gave her brother a comforting look. "Now you're regretting it, right? It's good that you're regretting it. Be good in the future and don't stuff everything into your arms. Learn from 6th brother." When little Yi was still a junior high school student, 6th brother already kept a close eye on him. Later on, when he needed to, he took action. "He's much better than you." Xia Yunin felt that compared to the news of second aunt's 6-piece jade jewelry set, this news was truly shocking. It almost made him throw his nephew to the ground. Xia Yui, who was sitting next to him, heard his son giggle and turned his head to look. He happened to see 4th brother quickly pick up his son, who was about to fall to the ground. Xia Yui looked away indifferently and continued to let his silly brother carry the child for him. In family Xia, boys had this kind of status. From the eldest, Xia Lingxiao, to the 6th, Xia Jinyuan, the 6 brothers were all like this in their parents' eyes. Later on, Xia Jinyuan was forced to leave because of Madame Zhao's insistence. Hence, old madam, old master, and the elders doted on him. Xia Yui turned his head and said to his wife, "5th brother has been different from all of us since he was young. His IQ is obviously not on the same level. Now that 6th brother brings home a wife, we'll be jealous that 6th brother and his girlfriend are in love and are a couple." Brothers ridiculed each other, and fathers ridiculed their sons. Both were one of the fine traditions of family Xia. When her husband ridiculed her brother-in-law, the wife only glanced at him indifferently and ignored him. She continued to talk to her sister-in-law. Xia Yui, who was ignored by his wife, tugged on her sleeve. He heard her point to the empty table next to them and said, "Can you 5 brothers sit at the table next to them? Do you have to squeeze together?" He then said to Xia Lingxiao's wife, "Sister-in-law, let eldest brother go over too. If the 5 brothers come over, we won't even have room to raise our hands." After 3rd brother's wife spoke, eldest brothers, 2nd brothers, and 4th brothers' wives all spoke up. "Xia Lingtan, you are already a division-level cadre. Why are you still squeezing with me? Hurry up and sit over there. Xia Yiding, don't pretend to be asleep. I couldn't sleep last night because of your snoring. I'm not sleepy now, so why are you pretending to be sleepy? Hurry and go with big brother. Xia Yui, don't pretend to tease your son. Old 5 was in your arms just now, but I didn't see you holding him. Hurry up and go with old 5. Leave me alone." Xia Yujing, learn from big brother, 2nd brother, and 3rd brother. Stop pretending you didn't hear me. And Ho Zi, you carry my nephew over and let Yiwei carry my niece. Ho Zi, whose daughter had been replaced by her son, was dumbfounded. Dear sisters-in-law, he was really carrying his daughter just now and had no intention of staying by his wife's side. Why did you chase him away? Xia Yiwei, who had carried her daughter, glanced at her husband with a faint smile. Then, Ho Zi carried her son and was the first to get up. 4th sister-in-law was amazing. It was obvious that big brother, 2nd brother, and 3rd brother didn't get up and stayed by their sisters-in-law's side. In the end, he was forced to learn from them. He should learn from his brothers and stay by their side. But, sigh, he had to admit it. He couldn't offend his wife. When the time came, he would have to sleep in the study room with his son. Therefore, in order to avoid sleeping alone with his son tonight, Ho Zi was the first to rebel. Chapter 3389. Therefore, from Xia Lingxiao to Xia Yujing, they all looked at the first traitor. Traitor, how shameless! They sat down temporarily and decided to observe the situation. The brothers pretended that they didn't hear or see anything. They continued to sit together with their wives and chatted merrily. Xia Yunin, who did not have a wife to accompany him, smiled and carried his nephew. She said to the 4 brothers who were still sitting there, "Brother-in-law is lonely. I'll go and accompany him." The second traitor was about to lose the base. Retreat? Retreat. Okay. Together. Retreat. The 4 brothers exchanged glances. There was a shameless traitor among them. If they did not retreat now, the consequences would be unimaginable. They made a prompt decision to retreat. Soon, the sound of chairs being moved could be heard. The 4 men from family Xia stood up and said, "It's a little crowded. We ate too much breakfast just now. It's hard to digest if it's too crowded. Let's go. Sit next to us." The men from family Xia, who were all serious outside, smiled and found a way out for themselves. They obediently sat at the table next to them. The eldest sister-in-law was afraid that Xia Lingxiao would sit over again, so she moved the chair next to her and said to the other sisters-in-law, "Move away, in case they squeeze over again." No wonder old madam and old master went back to their room to rest after breakfast. They must be tired seeing them like children who haven't been weaned. My father-in-law and mother-in-law went back to their room to prepare a greeting gift for 6th brother's wife. "We didn't prepare enough, so we'll just use red packets. It's our country's tradition to give red packets during the new year. We can't go wrong with tradition. Set the number 2. Everyone has 1 number. Okay, it's best to use 1 number. I brought red packets with me. Come, 1 by 1. I'll wrap them up now. I was worried just now and wanted to discuss with the sisters-in-law how big the red packet should be. Now it's all the same. There's no need to worry." The sisters-in-law, who could not carry their children with their bags, took the red packets prepared by 4th brother's wife and took out cash from their bags to give Yi Qian a greeting gift. Family Xia's men never interfered with family matters. The financial power was also in the hands of their wives. The few of them ate and lived in the army, so they didn't spend much money at all. All of the daughters-in-law he married were good at managing the household. They were gentle, dignified, and tactful. The old madam often sighed, wondering how Commander-in-Chief Xia had made such a mistake. When the men at the next table saw this, they all sighed at old Six's wife's good luck. They had not gathered together for the new year for 6 years. This year, they had made an appointment to return to the old mansion one after another on the 29th and 30th of the new year. Only then did they know that the brothers had all rushed back to the old mansion for the new year. It had been 6 years since the reunion new year, and 6th brother had managed to catch up with it. "Last time, my dad told me that little brother's girlfriend is the prettiest of all the sisters-in-law. I was so scared that I didn't even dare to bring my girlfriend along for fear of embarrassing myself. When little brother and the others come back, I must take a good look at how pretty my sister-in-law is." As soon as 5th brother Xia Yunin finished speaking, 4th brother Xia Yuzheng knocked on his head. "Your sisters-in-law are sitting next door. You're asking for a beating, aren't you?" It was my dad who said that, not me. After being knocked on the head, 5th brother felt that he couldn't continue living like this. He was despised everywhere he went. 4th brother, hit him for me too. 3rd brother Xia Yui, who was also 5th brother Xia Yunin's biological brother, calmly used others to teach his younger brother how to speak. Pretty? Which of his sisters-in-law wasn't pretty? Chapter 3390. Father was an elder. It was fine if an elder said something, but 5th brother dared to say it too? He even said it in front of them. He deserved a beating. Xia Yunin, who had picked up her nephew, was heartbroken. She scolded her brother for his crime. "Are there any brothers like you? I only said what my father said. I didn't say it myself. Why did you take turns to beat me?" At the same time, she stuffed her nephew back into his father's arms. I'm not carrying him. Carry him yourself. Xia Yui took his son, turned sideways, and placed him on the ground. He said to his son, Little Bean, go play with Grandpa and Grandma. Also, go to the back room to accompany Old Master and Old Madam. Xia Yui, who was at a missile base in the northwest with Father Fu, put down his son, who was nicknamed Little Bean, and coaxed him to leave. He continued to sit there, glancing at the child's mother from time to time. Xia Yunin, who had been tricked by her brother, quickly complained to her sister-in-law. Sister-in-law, brother is being a hands-off boss again. How dare he? With a shout, Xia Yui picked up his son at lightning speed. He was really going to go find his grandparents. The 4-year-old Little Bean refused. He would come and go as he pleased. It hurt his self-esteem. Family Xia's children were all smart. Although Little Bean was only 4 years old, he was a little mischievous. He said directly to his father, I don't want you to carry me. I want to go find Grandpa and Grandma. The eldest, Xia Lingxiao, raised his voice and said to his 10-year-old son, who was playing in the snow outside the house, Xia Yu, come and play snowman with your younger brother. The children who were laughing just now seemed to have been hit on their acupoints to mute. It was quiet outside the house. When the servants who were watching the children outside saw this, they couldn't help but laugh. When the old butler saw this, he smiled even more. Looking at the old master's great-grandchildren was like looking at the eldest young master's generation. In the blink of an eye, the eldest young master had become Grandpa and Grandma. How fast the days passed. Every generation of the family Xia was strong, and when it came to the little young master's generation, every one of them was smart and quick-witted. They were so delicate that they wished they could hug them in their arms every day. The older children outside were afraid that the adults in the house would ask them to take the little ones to play, so they quickly ran to the back garden to play. When the old housekeeper saw this, he immediately let the younger servants follow them to prevent the golden jade dolls from bumping into each other. After the children left the front yard, the old butler smiled and stood there for a while before walking to the backyard. Everything was prepared at home. It was a pity that firecrackers could not be set off. Otherwise, he would have blown up the firecrackers to welcome the newlyweds home. Later on, Xia Jinyuan's eldest uncle, second uncle, youngest uncle, and aunt hurriedly prepared their gifts and asked Commander-in-Chief Xia to look through them and see if he had any good suggestions. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had also prepared a greeting gift, laughed out loud when he saw this. This is amazing. Sixth brother and his wife are back. What a great harvest! They went from being poor peasants to being rich. Every big red envelope was stuffed to the brim and couldn't be closed. It was full of new banknotes. A big red envelope stuffed to the brim was worth at least 20,000 yuan. 2 of each family gave 8 red envelopes. Youngest uncle's family was the most well-off. Youngest aunt used a red sandalwood box to store a set of 6 jade ornaments. Commander-in-Chief Xia said that it was too expensive, but youngest aunt said, "It's not expensive. I've given them to the first 4 wives, and I'll give them to sixth brother as well. We can't be biased. I'll take it. We can't refuse gifts from our elders. How can we refuse? Listen to eldest aunt, we can't leave out sixth brother's wife." Xia Jinyuan's eldest aunt persuaded in a soft and gentle voice. Just by listening to her voice, one could tell that she was a kind elder. Chapter 3391. Little Aunt was much more straightforward. She herself was a businesswoman and never hesitated to give anything to the younger generation in her family. She was especially generous. She also said, "Third brother, this is from me. You can't make the decision for sixth brother's family. Sister-in-law already said that we can't refuse gifts from our elders. We have to accept them." The immediate family members were all busy, including the uncles who came to give their New Year greetings to Old Master Yi and Old Madam Yi. They gave each other a big red packet. When everyone met with red packets in their pockets, even old Madam Yi and old Master Yi knew that Sixth Brother's family would be tired of receiving red packets today. The house was bustling with noise and excitement. Everyone was waiting for Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian to return. They received the letter at 5 a.m. At 5:30 a.m., the whole family, including the twins in their arms, woke up to welcome the newlywed. In the car, after Yi Qian heard about the family Xia's elders who were at the Yi family residence, her hand went to the car door lock. Was it too late to get out of the car now? They were all there. Besides eldest uncle's family, second uncle's family, youngest uncle's family, auntie's family, there were also two uncles' families. After doing the math, Yi Qian felt like she was about to faint. Based on a family of 5, there would be 40 people in total from 8 families. What's more, it wasn't just a family of 5. Yi Qian said in a trembling voice, "Captain Xia, you have a lot of relatives." There were too many of them. There were so many of them. Xia Jinyuan, who was used to the hustle and bustle of the new year at home, comforted Yi Qian. It's okay. There are so many people at the ancestral home. I can't even call out the names of some of my cousins." Needless to say, she probably didn't even know the names of her cousins' descendants. Yi Qian felt her calves start to tremble. This wasn't considered a lot. There were so many of them at the ancestral home. Family Xia was indeed a big family. It was so big that it made her flinch. Could she not go? Be good. They're all waiting for us to come back. I can't not go. How could Xia Jinyuan not know what his girlfriend was thinking? Now that they were almost at the door, it was too late for regrets. Last night, when he was on the phone with his family, he could vaguely hear that there were many relatives around old Madam. This morning, after he specially called to confirm how many relatives were there, Lieutenant Colonel Xia decided not to tell his girlfriend immediately. Based on his understanding of his girlfriend, if she knew that there were many relatives at home, she would not even be willing to step out of the Fu family. And as long as she showed the slightest hint that she didn't want to go out, her future father-in-law would definitely make it so that she didn't want to go out at all. Xia Jinyuan knew Yi Qian very well. Therefore, he waited until they were halfway through the journey before he mentioned to Yi Qian that he had a lot of relatives. "Grandpa and Grandma have been waiting for you to come home with me. Last time, she told me that she must introduce her favorite granddaughter-in-law to her family after the new year. Little fox, you can't bear to disappoint her, right?" When Xia Jinyuan mentioned the elderly, Yi Qian could only surrender. She didn't say that she had to go home. She was just a little timid. Since she had promised the elderly and was so considerate, how could she do anything that would make them sad? The car drove past the alley. After a few hundred meters, the high walls of family Xia's ancestral home could be seen. The wide and open door was already open. The car drove in from the side. The servant who had been guarding the door immediately reported, they're here. Go and welcome them." Old Madam, who was sitting in the main hall, was so happy that she got down from her chair. She wanted to go and welcome them personally, but eldest aunt laughed and said, "Mom, if you go and welcome them personally, old Madam will feel embarrassed. Let them go. They will all be sisters-in-law in the future. It's good to get to know each other early." Chapter 3392. Eldest aunt was very considerate and knew that Madame Fu liked Sixth Brother's girlfriend very much. However, she also knew from youngest uncle that the girl was shy and polite. Although she was a little reserved in front of the elders, she still spoke naturally and gracefully. She was a good girl who knew how to behave. The Fu family was small in number, so the girl probably had never seen a family Xia welcome her. The whole family crowded around her to welcome her. Of course, the intention of the family Xia was good, but they were afraid that the girl would be embarrassed. Therefore, they persuaded her carefully. Madame Fu nodded and gently patted her eldest daughter-in-law, who was supporting her arm. She smiled and said, "You're so thoughtful. Sixth brother's wife is shy. I was a little worried that she wouldn't be able to control sixth brother. Commander-in-Chief Xia said, Mom, you don't have to worry about that. Although Xiao Yi is shy, she is a very principled person. Sixth brother may be impudent in front of others, but in front of Xiao Yi, he's just like his brothers. When Madame Fu heard this, she exclaimed softly and laughed so hard that she couldn't straighten her back. I remember what sixth brother told me before. He said that eldest brother, second brother, third brother, and fourth brother are not as powerful as they are outside. When they come home, they are afraid of their wives. If he finds a wife in the future, she will have to be afraid of him. Oh my, I really believed him. In the end, he's just like his brothers. I'm going to ask him later if he's afraid of Xiao Yi, or if Xiao Yi is afraid of him. When Madame Fu teased her grandson, the elders all laughed. It was normal for sixth brother to say those things in the past. Even they thought that sixth brother was more mischievous than his brothers in the family. He was also the most strong-willed one among them. Who knew that he was the same deep down? Family Xia was really strong. It was passed down from generation to generation. Looking at the girl in their arms who was being coaxed, and the boy who was being thrown into the snow, it was no wonder that men with family Xia were a little afraid of their wives. They had been raised like this since they were young. Soon, the 4 sisters-in-law and 5 brothers came out to welcome Yi Qian. Xia Jinyuan parked the car at the entrance and asked the helper to drive it into the garage. He then held Yi Qian's hand and walked through the vermilion gate. Yi Qian's hands were a little cold. Before she got out of the car, she had even mentally prepared herself. She felt that she wasn't that nervous even when she was on the battlefield. Don't worry, I'm here for you. The elders are all very gentle, just like my dad. You've seen youngest uncle. He likes to give you houses, cars, and money. Youngest aunt is the same. Money is not money in their hands. Later, youngest uncle and youngest aunt will give you money. Take it. Eldest uncle and eldest aunt are also very easygoing. When eldest uncle is outside, other people obey his arrangements. When he's at home, he only obeys eldest aunt's arrangements. You know what happened to second uncle. Second aunt is also very kind. When I was young, I loved second aunt's cooking the most. I even told second aunt that I wanted to be her son. In the end, I was beaten up by fourth brother. He said that not only did I eat and steal his food, but I also wanted to steal his mother. It was an unforgivable crime. After he beat me up, I turned around and told second uncle and second aunt. Fourth brother was beaten up that day. Aunt is more serious. She just looks serious. When I was young, she liked to secretly take me out to play. The first time I touched a car, it was Aunt who took me out. I was only 11 years old then. Later, Aunt was severely scolded by old Madam. From then on, she took me out to play even more secretly. Uncle is the principal of the industry university. He's very refined and reasonable to everyone. Old Master said that Uncle is the least like a soldier in our family. He has never seen a soldier who doesn't like to use his fists but likes to use his mouth. He started off as an instructor, and he's always walked the path of literature. Chapter 3393. Seeing that Yi Qian was still a little nervous, Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but slow down his footstep. His reserved voice was gentle as he said, I have 5 brothers upstairs. I won't introduce them too much. You'll know when you see them. They had already walked through the red lacquered door and passed through the wild goose-winged shadow wall. After Xia Jinyuan finished introducing his 5 brothers, Yi Qian saw a row of people walking in front of her. She had already begun to see them and was already nervous. Yi Qian couldn't help but hold Xia Jinyuan's hand tightly. At this moment, he was her only support. She couldn't be blamed for being nervous. She didn't have that many relatives in her 2 lifetimes, so she also had stage fright. Family Xia had 5 brothers. Even the fifth brother, Xia Yunin, who was a businessman, was a man with a strong aura. Most young ladies from prestigious families would keep quiet out of fear in front of them. They wouldn't even dare to raise their heads, let alone speak. Yi Qian was already doing well. Although she was nervous, she looked calm and composed on the outside. She had an aura that was unique to her. The man in the lead had sharp features. Probably because he rarely smiled, the corners of his mouth were pursed tightly, making him look even more serious. Even though he was dressed casually, Yi Qian could tell that he was a soldier. He was Captain Xia's eldest brother and was also the youngest division commander. The National University of Science and Technology even introduced him. Yi Qian's heartbeat was a little unstable. The person who was holding her hand tightly held her hand, transmitting a warm and powerful force. He whispered to her, "When you're at home, there are no superiors or subordinates. We're all family. You don't have to care about your status outside." Yi Qian swallowed slightly and nodded subtly, indicating that she would do her best. She looked at the other men who were equally outstanding. All of them were handsome and had an extraordinary aura. Other than the young man who looked similar to her youngest uncle, who had an elegant temperament and wasn't a soldier, the other four men were dressed casually and gave off a strong military aura. Family Xia was originally a family of nobles and soldiers. They had an unshakable position in the capital. Other than the youngest one, the other four were accompanied by a gentle and graceful woman. Just like her, their hands were tightly held, as if they were afraid that they would slip on the snow. Each and every one of them was charming and had an outstanding temperament. Yi Qian could already feel that she was easy to get along with even before they spoke. Sister-in-law. In his heart, Yi Qian was already calling her sister-in-law. What else could he call her? Following the way Captain Xia addressed him, there was no mistake. In the blink of an eye, the two groups of people got closer and closer. Yi Jian secretly looked at her brothers and sisters-in-law of the Xia family. At the same time, the men and daughters-in-law of the Xia family were also secretly looking at their future sisters-in-law. Third brother Xia Yui had seen Yi Qian once before, so he wasn't that surprised. As for the others, it was their first time meeting Yi Qian. When they first saw Yi Qian, they felt that she was still in junior high school. Old Six had already started to have ideas. It wasn't unreasonable. Her eyes were clear and beautiful, her eyes were like water, her facial features were beautiful, and she had a smile on her face. She was indeed good-looking. Old fifth brother Xia Yunin felt that all the celebrities and young ladies he had dated before were just randomly picked up from the roadside. Compared to old Six's girlfriend, they were simply a far cry. He deeply despised his previous judgment. He had to raise his standards for choosing a spouse. The sisters-in-law were no less surprised than their husbands. Old Six was indeed Old Six. He was smart since he was young, and he was still so smart now that he had found a girlfriend. Her appearance, figure, and temperament were all good. Chapter 3394. And his skin. Didn't they say that he was a military school student? Didn't they say that he had to train hard every day? Didn't they say that he would never stop being exposed to the elements? Why was his skin so tender and fair? Even his skin glowed softly under the snow. Women looked at other women differently. They usually paid attention to appearance and figure first, followed by temperament. Temperament. Yi Qian had started his military career in the second semester of his second year of junior high school and had been tempered by war. The temperament of a soldier was ingrained in his bones and could be seen in his every move. Just like a man from a family Xia who joined the military, it was difficult to hide his military temperament even if he wore casual clothes. The Fu family tested Xia Jinyuan, and similarly, Xia Jinyuan's 5 older brothers would also test Yi Qian. If he didn't even have the guts to speak to them, then 6th brother's taste was mediocre. As they got closer, Xia Lingshao spoke on behalf of the family. "Xiao Yi, Happy New Year. I'm your eldest brother, Xiaoling Xiao. It's nice to meet you. Yi Qian reached out and shook Xiaoling Xiao's hand gently. He smiled and said, Happy New Year, big brother. I'm Yi Qian. Hello, Xiao Yi. I'm your sister-in-law. If sixth brother bullies you in the future, just come to me. I'll stand up for you. His sister-in-law reached out with a gentle smile and voice. His second brother, Unyielding, had always had a low presence in the family. His occupation was even more special than Xia Jinyuan's. On the outside, he was an engineer in the National Defense Information Network, but in reality, his job was to prevent the domestic network from being hacked, and at the same time, to prevent hackers from invading the country. His special occupation allowed him to reduce his presence at any time. He reached out his hand and said calmly, Second brother, Unyielding. If sixth brother does anything wrong, I can teach him. Forget it. You spend all your time on the computer. You only have time to teach computer skills. Second sister-in-law secretly pinched her husband's arm and smiled at Yi Qian. Just listen to your second brother's words. Second sister-in-law's words are much more useful than your second brother's. If sixth brother does anything wrong in the future, second sister-in-law will teach him. After saying that, she blinked and pretended to speak in a low voice, but everyone could hear her, as she imparted her insights to Yi Qian. Men with family Xia are the type who need to be taught a lesson. They'll be obedient after a few lessons. Lao Lu is the most dishonest, so you can do your best to teach him a lesson. Even old madam will clap her hands and praise you. Men with family Xia were too smart. Smart people tended to make mistakes easily. They needed a strong and principled wife to control them. When necessary, they could use force to solve the problem. Then, third brother, Xia Yui, and fourth brother, Xia Yuzheng, introduced themselves to his wife. They said the same thing as eldest brother and second brother, telling Yi Qian how to teach Xia Jinyuan a lesson. When it was fifth brother's turn to speak, Xia Yunin sighed. He sighed until the corners of Yi Qian's eyes twitched. He then said, Xiao Yi, your appearance has suddenly raised my standards for finding a girlfriend. It's already difficult to find a considerate girlfriend. Now, I'm really worried that I'll be single for the rest of my life. The man who was elegant and proper just a moment ago had transformed into a humorous and playboy man. Yi Qian couldn't help but look at Xia Jinyuan. The two of them were quite similar. Other than the fact that Captain Xia didn't have the playboy vibe, he had the yuppie vibe. Xia Jinyuan pulled Yi Qian into his arms and lifted his chin slightly. He said to Lao Wu, the models and celebrities you found are all good. You can continue next time. There's no need to raise your standards. Taste determines everything and can't be changed. Chapter 3395. Yi Qian's intuition was indeed very sharp. Xia Yunin and Xia Jinyuan were about the same age, so they liked to play together when they were young. When they grew up, they even went to the same high school. Therefore, they were the two closest to each other among the six brothers. They liked to play together the most and liked to expose each other's dirty secrets the most. However, today was different. Xia Yunin wanted to expose Xia Jinyuan's dirty secrets, but she had to hold it in. When she heard Yi Qian's words, she held back the words that were about to rush out of her throat and smiled elegantly. I'm just accumulating experience so that I can find you a good sister-in-law in the future. I'm not like you, who can find such a good girlfriend in one go. Yi Qian couldn't help but smile. On the other side, the brothers couldn't stand how thick-skinned Yi Qian was. When the sister-in-law saw Yi Qian smile without any expression of disgust, she knew that she wasn't at ease. Since Yi Qian had been in the business world for a long time, it was inevitable that he would be tainted with the scent of a prostitute. As a family, there was no need to hold back when talking. After all, everyone knew about Yi Qian's romantic past. However, Xiao Yi was different. It would be bad if she left a bad impression on Yi Qian when meeting Yi Qian for the first time. However, Yi Qian's expression didn't change. When he smiled with pursed lips, there was a look of understanding in his clear eyes. He even glanced at Xia Jinyuan with a smile, which made the sister-in-law instantly feel relieved. She was a clever person. She could tell at a glance that Yi Qian and Yi Qian were similar in temperament. They were both rascals with a bad taste in their mouth. Since they had met and spoken, it was time to go back to the house. The sister-in-law smiled at Yi Qian and said, "Let's go in first. Old Six, quickly go in with Xiao Yi. Old Madam and Old Master can't wait any longer." Xia Jinyuan held Yi Qian's hand tightly. Through his dry palm, he could feel that the sweat in her palm had mostly dissipated. After meeting with his brothers and sister-in-law for a short time, his little fox was starting to get used to it. His little fox's ability to adapt had always been very strong. She would become stronger when facing a strong opponent. She was the calmest and messiest little fellow. Even on the battlefield where life and death were uncertain, she was fearless. She was no longer afraid of life and death. What else could be difficult for her? What else could make her hesitate? Let's go. Let's pay a New Year's greeting to Grandpa, Grandma, and the elders. He lowered his head and spoke in a soft and gentle voice. It was warm and reassuring. As always, it gave Yi Qian the strength to face him with courage. Yi Qian raised her eyes and looked at him with bright eyes. She smiled and nodded. She was not as flustered as she was in the car. Since she was here, she should take things as they came. Besides, he was here with her. Even if she was careless, he would make up for it. Thinking about it, she felt that there was no need to panic. Furthermore, this was not the first time they had met. As a Special Forces soldier with strong mental fortitude, she was able to ignore the panic she felt when she first heard that she would be meeting about 40 to 50 family Xia relatives today. When she really had to face them, she was able to face them calmly. When the elders of family Xia who had never met Yi Qian before mentioned Old Six's wife in the future, they would say, "Beautiful and intelligent. Calm and generous. She has the strength of character and the bearing of a phoenix." This was the first time Old Six's uncle, Xiangua, had seen Yi Qian's wife. Seeing that they were about to reach the main house, the brothers and their wives all tacitly fell back half a step, allowing Xia Jinyuan to lead Yi Qian into the main house first. When old Madame saw Yi Qian walk in, the smile on her face deepened. She then looked at her grandson who was carefully holding his girlfriend's hand as they entered the house. Seeing his happy face, she thought to herself, "Oh my, he even said that he would marry a wife who was only afraid of him in the future. Look at him, he was even better than his brothers." Chapter 3396. Family Xia was led by Uncle Xiangua. Their gazes had already landed on Yi Qian the moment he stepped into the house. Although they were sizing him up, they were exceptionally gentle and did not give Yi Qian any pressure at all. Although they did not give Yi Qian any pressure, suddenly being stared at by dozens of people, Yi Qian, who had gradually calmed down, could not help but feel his heart tighten uncontrollably. Eldest uncle and eldest aunt are sitting at the front. Second aunt is sitting at the bottom. You've already met youngest uncle. Youngest aunt will definitely give you a big gift later. Take it. Old Madam must have seen it. Don't feel pressured. Take it. This is my aunt's family. Isn't it very serious? In fact, it's not serious at all. It's very adventurous. It's still the same now. She knows how to drive motorboats, speedboats, and airplanes. She used to be a pilot in the army. Uncle is the principal of the engineering school. Cousin Zhouichen is a teacher in command of the school. Cousin Zhouijin is in charge of the Nanguang military region. Over there are my 2 uncles and aunts along with 2 older cousins. Look, there aren't many of them, right? Xia Jinyuan had already introduced them to Yi Qian when he stepped into the house. But Yi Qian did not dare to look at them like that. Her heart tightened, and her face was a little red. She did not know which family was which. She only knew that she was the source of all the attention at this moment. Don't panic, Yi Qian. Stay calm. Stay calm. In her heart, Yi Qian mentally prepared herself with every step she took. With every step she took, her breathing became a little deeper. She maintained a gentle smile on her face all the way until she greeted old Madam and old Master Xia. Her clear voice was natural and dignified. It was normal to hear that she was a little nervous. How could she not be nervous when she was suddenly being stared at by so many relatives of the man? However, she was not timid. Her smile was very appropriate. The piercingly cold military aura on her body was very imposing, a little. Eldest Uncle Xiaongua and the two uncles narrowed their eyes slightly. Sixth brother had a murderous aura about him, as if he had been on the battlefield. As a military academy student, he had already been on a real bloody battlefield. No wonder the father-in-law was so satisfied with his daughter-in-law. Sixth brother was a soldier who often went to the battlefield. His military career was one of the most dangerous jobs among all his brothers. Similarly, if he didn't find a wife with a strong psychological quality, it would be impossible for him to survive. Now, look what happened. He actually found a girlfriend who had also been on the battlefield. Her eyes were clear, and her expression was optimistic. Although she was nervous in the face of so many relatives sizing her up, she was calm. Sixth brother's taste. Yes, it was much better than his father's. Uncle Xiaongua immediately leaned over and said to Commander-in-Chief Xia, "Sixth brother has good taste, much better than you. We have to let old Sixth treat old Mister's granddaughter well. You really can't find another girl as good as her in the entire capital." Her eyes were clear, and her expression was open-minded. She did not have the piercingly cold aura of a soldier. She did have the piercingly cold aura of a soldier, but she did not have the same killing intent as old Six. After all, there were very few female soldiers on the battlefield. There were also female soldiers who had been on the battlefield like old Sixth, but old Sixth didn't like them. Old Sixth liked them, and old Madam and old Master were satisfied. There was only one such girl. Commander-in-Chief Xia had been used to saying that his son had good taste, and by the way, he would say better taste than his father. He smiled lightly and said, "The pupil is better than the master. As a son, naturally, he has better taste than his father." "You are telling the truth." Uncle Xia nodded and said with certainty, "You finally admit that you have bad taste." Chapter 3397. Commander-in-Chief Xia was speechless. He was already so old and already had a grandson in his arms. Why did he still like to tease him? Meanwhile, youngest aunt also said to youngest uncle, "Sixth brother is so lucky. This kid has been hard to fool since he was young. He's so naughty that no one can find fault with him. I told you years ago that sixth brother would be a successful man in the future. Look, he brought his girlfriend back. He has good taste." On the other hand, second aunt knew about Yi Qian from her daughter, Xiaoiwei. Every time her daughter mentioned sixth brother's girlfriend, her eyes were filled with satisfaction. Even her son-in-law, Ho Zi, would say that sixth brother's girlfriend was very good. Now that they met, wasn't it great? Meanwhile, Yi Qian, who had just finished paying New Year's greetings to old Madam and old Master Xia, was holding 2 heavy red packets. She didn't even have the chance to reject them. Xia Jinyuan accepted them and directly stuffed them into his pocket. New Year's red packets. Grandpa and Grandma wish you 2 a long and happy relationship. Before accepting the red packets, old Madam and old Master Xia said these auspicious words. Then, a very heavy red packet appeared in their hand. "Keep it well. You all have one." Sixth brother used to love the new year the most. As long as it was the new year, all the red packets would go in but not out. You should check his account later. After so many years, Just the red packets alone probably have a considerable amount. Remember to accept his red packet. Old Madam reminded with a smile. Men with family poverty shouldn't have private savings. Your older brothers are the same. The older brothers silently looked away. Old Madam was wise. Xia Jinyuan was smarter and immediately replied, "Don't worry, that's all the money I saved for my wife. Of course, I'll keep it for my wife." The older brothers silently looked at sixth brother, who was so good at coaxing his girlfriend. "Kid, later I'll have to tell little Yi that you used to say that you must make your wife afraid of you." Although Lieutenant Colonel Xia managed to coax his girlfriend, he also got himself into trouble. Old Madam was so amused by her favorite grandson that she was about to cry. She said to her sons and daughters-in-law beside her, "You guys are so well prepared. It's exactly what sixth brother wanted. He'll be able to save up a large sum of money for his wife this year." When he was young, every time he received a red packet, he would say, "This is my private stash." A man needs to have a private stash to be confident in front of his wife. He didn't know where he heard it from, but when he was 5 or 6 years old, he knew that a man needed to have a private stash. Now, it had become the money he used to save for his wife. She didn't expose him either. She couldn't drag him down on such a good day. As for Yi Qian, he first received the old madam's and old master's red packets. Following that, eldest uncle's and second uncle's families also gave him the same amount of red packets. It was not just 1 red packet per family, but 2 red packets per family. They couldn't even hold onto the red packets in their hands. They couldn't possibly learn from the thick-skinned Captain Xia and put them all into their pockets. As the father, Commander-in-Chief Xia naturally had to give 1 red packet per family. When he gave the red packets, he didn't look like a commander-in-chief at all. He looked like an ordinary, loving father. Yi Qian even saw tears in the commander-in-chief's eyes when he nodded and said, "Okay." Xia Jinyuan also saw it. He said to Commander-in-Chief Xia, "Dad, when you go fishing in the future, you'll have another daughter to accompany you." Commander-in-Chief Xia, whose eyes were no longer watery, smiled and replied, "Yes, with a daughter, you don't have to come anymore. I'm happy today, so I won't argue with you." It wasn't easy for Lieutenant Colonel Xia to be moved, but in the face of his old man's usual disdain, he decided to let it go for the sake of the good days. When the family saw this, they couldn't help but laugh and shake their heads. Chapter 3398. Sixth brother and his father were really natural enemies. In front of his father, he despised his son and never said anything nice. But behind his back, he was very satisfied. Forget it, all men with family Xia were the same. Not only was sixth brother's father like this, but the other fathers were also like this. Yi Qian had seen the different interactions between the father and son, so he was not surprised at all. When it was second aunt's turn, she took out a seemingly expensive wooden box carved with the words, "Magpie announcing good news" on the front, peony blooming on both sides, and an auspicious beast on the top. Yi Jian really didn't know what to do this time. Just looking at the box made of unknown wood already made her feel that it was expensive. What was inside? Yi Qian did not know what to do. Second aunt smiled and said, "This is a small gift from me. Your sisters-in-law and the others all have it. Old Madam said that you should have what they have. We can't favor one and discriminate against the other. Come, 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 come. Take it, take it." Seeing that Yi Qian did not know what to do, second aunt handed it to Xia Jinyuan. "It's not easy for Xiao Yi to take it. Take it for her and give it to Xiao Yi when we get back to her room." Xia Jinyuan reached out and took it calmly. "How can I not accept second aunt's gift? Don't worry, I'll give it to her when we get home. I won't take it for myself." "Do you dare?" little aunt asked with a smile. Xia Jinyuan smiled. "No, I don't dare. Give it to Jane Eyre." It was not a matter of whether he dared or not, But was it really okay to accept so much? When they reached Little Ant, she asked Yi Qian what he was interested in. Yi Qian blurted out, "I'm interested in flying tanks and planes." She was really interested. Otherwise, she would not have asked to fly a fighter jet after winning. Uncle laughed. "Sukuan, you've found a common interest. Our daughter doesn't dare, but sixth brother's wife does. You won't have to worry about not being able to find a partner in the future." Little Aunt Xia Sujuan smiled and nodded. She said amiably to Yi Qian, "When you return to the capital during the holidays, Auntie will take you to fly a plane." "Auntie, she wants to fly a fighter jet, not a civilian jet," Xia Jinyuan explained on behalf of Yi Qian. Xia Sujuan looked regretful. "That won't do. You'll have to work hard to achieve it." "Mom, if Aunt Lu can't fly a fighter jet, then you can teach Aunt Lu how to fly a civilian plane." Zhou Yijin, who had been waiting for Yi Qian to come over, finally found a chance to interrupt. She smiled at Yi Qian and said, "Aunt Lu, my mom is very good. If you can't fly a fighter jet, you can learn how to fly a civilian jet from my mom. I guarantee that you'll be able to master it." Aunt Lu. Faced with the new nickname Yi Qian, she felt a little embarrassed. She hadn't married Captain Xia yet, but she had suddenly become Aunt Lu. Xia Jinyuan liked it very much. He gave his cousin a look of approval. "Yijin is right. Let your Aunt Lu learn with you in the future. Lao Lu, you'll make her very scared. She doesn't dare to learn it herself, so she hopes that Lu Sa will learn it so that she won't be my mother's target." Zhou Yichen smiled and exposed Zhou Yijin's lie. He was also a brother who would easily set up his sister. Zhou Yijin wrinkled her nose and glared at her brother. She smiled sweetly at Yi Qian and said, "Aunt Lu, you're so beautiful. After you learn how to fly a plane with my mom, you'll be handsome and beautiful." "Your Aunt Lu is already handsome and beautiful. Later, sixth brother will give you a big red packet." "Thank you, sixth brother." "You're welcome. Just take care of your Aunt Lu in the future." Xia Jinyuan, who was holding the wooden box, didn't forget to find a backer for Yi Qian. In the future, when Yi Qian returned to the Fu family, it would be good to have another peer who could walk around the capital. But first, he had to think about how to transfer Yijin from the Nanguang military base back to the capital. Xia Jinyuan thought that when his uncle finished paying his New Year's greetings, the two of them would have to hold onto the red packets they received. For the first time, Yi Qian felt that it was easy to worry about money. Chapter 3399. Money was no different from a hot potato in her hands. Her hands were strong enough to carry logs and machine guns, but the red packets were getting heavier and heavier. It was getting more and more difficult for her to carry them. However, the man beside her said shamelessly, "If I had known, I would have brought a bag with me so that I could put the red packets in it. When the time comes, I can just open the bag and go straight to the bank. It's so convenient." Embarrassed Yi Qian. People with family Xia didn't seem to care about trifles. Sometimes, even the old madam could joke with the younger generation. She was as young as an 18-year-old. Xia Yiwei, who was carrying her son, smiled and joked, Come, Xiao Yi. This is a small gift from your brother-in-law and I. Since Laolu specially told me to take good care of you, I knew what Laolu was thinking. This guy, since young, as long as he has set his mind on something, he will do everything to get what he wants. But I really didn't expect him to be able to endure for so many years. It's obvious that he really cares about you. He won't marry anyone else but you." Jean Wawa, who was in her arms, seemed to know that her mother was happy. She clapped her hands and laughed. She even giggled at Yi Qian. She wasn't afraid of strangers at all. When Xia Yiwei saw this, she wanted to directly stuff the child into Yi Qian's arms. Ho Zi, who was beside them, reacted quickly. She carried her son with one hand and stopped her with the other. "She doesn't have extra arms to carry. Let Laolu and his wife carry her later." Let's strive to give birth to a pair of twins. Yi Qian knew that Xia Yiwei gave birth to a pair of twins, but she had never seen them. Now that she saw them, the two children were wearing the same color clothes and hat. Even the shoes on their feet were exactly the same. At first glance, it was really hard to tell who was a girl and who was a boy. At this moment, Jin Wawa, who was in Xia Yiwei's arms, suddenly giggled at her. Yi Qian also laughed. If it weren't for the red packets given by the elders, she really wanted to hug the small and soft child. Aya, our Bubble likes Auntie. Let Auntie hug you later. When little Aunt saw this, she couldn't help but laugh and teased. In the future, little Aunt should hug Boo Boo more. When you give birth to a pair of twins, it will be lively. Yi Qian's ears turned red when he heard this. She hadn't even married into the family, but she was already calling her Aunt Lu and Little Aunt. Then it was time to give birth to twins. When she came to Family Xia to pay her New Year's greetings, her identity changed layer by layer. She almost thought that she was really married and pregnant with twins. She blushed, but Xia Jinyuan did not feel embarrassed at all. He even smiled and said, "Since the elders are looking forward to it, I will work hard and live up to their expectations." Yi Qian couldn't hold it in any longer. He lifted his foot and ruthlessly stomped on his foot. Who asked him to spout nonsense? Who asked him to spout nonsense? Her ears turned red. Xia Yiwei, who was closest to her, was the first to notice. Fortunately, she was holding the child and did not look down to see Yi Qian's little movements. She laughed and said to the elders, "Auntie, if you continue to tease us, our newlywed will go back to his room and not dare to come out. You're blushing. Ha ha ha, Xiao Yi, you'll get used to it. Our family likes to be like this. Don't be shy." The benevolent old madam helped Yi Qian out of the situation. "Do you think Xiao Yi is like you? Don't scare Xiao Yi. Otherwise, our sixth brother will be heartbroken." While helping Yi Qian out of the situation, she did not forget to tease her grandson. Xia Jinyuan was immune to all kinds of poison. He allowed the elders to tease him and did not feel uncomfortable at all. The conversation continued. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.